In a world defined by swords and sorcery, a young man sits hunched over a desk, quill in hand, questioning his fate. He scribbles furiously, his expression one of pure frustration as he wonders aloud why he must deal with such damn clunky paperwork. This is Ragnar Brave, a frontier nobleman. Elsewhere, an older man in a butler's uniform named Seabass stands solemnly, a cigarette between his fingers. As a door creaks open, he reports that most of the people in the estate were killed in battle. He continues, informing Ragnar that even as a mere retainer, it is now his responsibility as the new lord. Overwhelmed, Ragnar groans, telling Seabass he has come at a good time and pleading for help. The land Ragnar has inherited, the brave frontier territory, is a harsh and unforgiving place. It is full of monsters, and skirmishes with neighboring countries are frequent. Because of this brutal environment, other nobles call it the dumping ground. Ragnar reflects on his family's nature. His father and older brothers were a militant bunch, making him wonder how anyone in their family could possibly handle administrative tasks. His own training was far different. As the third son, he was conditioned from a young age to kill monsters and enemy soldiers, even being pitted against an orc when he was only 3 years old. But that life came to an abrupt end. A few months ago, the rest of his family died on the battlefield, leaving nothing behind but tattered banners and swords piercing the earth. As the only survivor, the sudden task of inheriting the entire frontier territory fell squarely on his shoulders. The weight of it all becomes too much. He throws his papers into the air, shouting his frustration. He was just the third son who wanted to live a carefree life as an adventurer, not be trapped in a dungeon of paperwork. He squeezes his eyes shut, overwhelmed, but his butler's voice cuts through his thoughts, insisting he cannot abandon his post. He has another duty to fulfill. The butler begins to explain the territory's precarious situation. It is blessed with plentiful natural resources and rich in monster materials, causing business with adventurers to boom. However, this prosperity is fragile. If they develop the fields, enemy soldiers will pillage them. If they develop the mountains, monsters will come to raid. As a result, their self-sufficiency is extremely limited. Because of this dependency, Ragnar, as the heir, must attend the academy in the royal capital. There, he will have to ingratiate himself with the other noble children to secure their support. He contemplates this demeaning task, wondering if he is truly capable of it. He scratches his head, annoyed, and asks if he can simply refuse to enroll, reasoning that his family already trains talented individuals. Seabass's reply is swift and firm, absolutely not. His frustration mounting, Ragnar demands to know what Seabass wants now. The butler stands formally and states that he has something important to discuss. A muscle in the butler's face twitches as he addresses him by his full title, Young Master Ragnar. The news is delivered bluntly. Ragnar has received a marriage proposal. The young lord's eyes widen in shock as the image of a veiled bride appears in his mind. He recoils, exclaiming that the proposal is far too sudden. Seabass calmly retorts that such offers are not unusual once a man becomes the lord of a territory. The butler reminds him that his brothers also had fiancées, but those women hated the dangerous region and never settled there, a fact that clearly troubles Ragnar. He fumes, realizing that the previous fiancées didn't even attend the funeral. Seabass confirms this, adding that when he delivered the news of his brothers' deaths, the women seemed rather relieved. His anger causes the quill in his hand to crack. He looks to his butler, asking if he understands the implication, and darkly wonders if he should just go kill them. Seabass, ever the professional, calmly advises his young master against such a course of action. The young master's mood swings wildly. One moment he is slumped over his desk in despair. The next he leaps to his feet, cheering. He declares that from now on, he'll be living in a dorm in the royal capital, only returning to manage the territory during long vacations. He explains his logic. He'll be so busy that he'll likely die anyway, so he asks Seabass to please reject the marriage proposal on his behalf. In response, his butler simply hands him a spare pen, stating that rejecting it is impossible. Seabass elaborates on the situation. This particular proposal comes from the Duchy of Oldwood, the very house that supplies their territory with more weaponry and food than any other noble family. The revelation shocks Ragnar, and the spare pen snaps in his hand. He desperately seeks a way out, asking Seabass to remind him of their family's title. Seabass confirms he is an earl, but Ragnar protests that a marriage between a duke's family and a mere frontier earl should be out of the question. The name Oldwood echoes in his mind. A strange look crosses his face as a profound realization strikes him. He remembers this world. A memory flashes through his mind. A long time ago, he was struck by an orc. He understands now that this event caused his memories to resurface, and he questions why he had forgotten this crucial fact until this very moment. The pieces fall into place with dawning horror. He is a reincarnator, and this world is a game he once played. A vision of his previous life surfaces. He sees himself lying in bed, engrossed in a handheld gaming device. He recalls enjoying the culture of a place called Japan, though his own name from that life remains just beyond his grasp. He stretched, the full weight of his situation settling in. This place, this life, it was the world of a game he used to play. The game was a standard otome title. A commoner protagonist enrolls in an aristocratic school and, in a typical story, develops a relationship with one of several male capture targets. He recalled, however, that despite the romantic premise, the game was filled with battles. By the end of the story, The royal capital was essentially a battlefield, a fact he now found grimly laughable. But what made the game particularly challenging was a certain character who frequently appeared on the screen of his old handheld console. She was the villainess, Alicia, daughter of the Oldwood family. Raised with the sole purpose of becoming queen, she was the prince's fiancée, a refined and talented young lady who, as he remembered his past self-complaining, was always getting in the way. Despite her many gifts, her personality was terrible. Her face contorted with disdain as she uttered insults, looking down on anyone she deemed a mere commoner. Her elitism was a daily torment for the protagonist. Surrounded by her entourage, Alicia would constantly harass the girl, demanding that she learn her proper place in the social hierarchy. Yet, despite the constant harassment, the protagonist only grew closer to the prince. This escalating rivalry eventually led to a duel being called, with the prince's future at stake. He focused, recalling the events that followed. The result of the duel was Alicia's crushing defeat. In the aftermath, her engagement to the prince was immediately called off. As a consequence of her actions and her loss, Alicia was forced to take full responsibility. She was married off to a frontier, noble family, exiled from the high society she once ruled. Her destination, as Ragnar recalled, was a small, isolated house on a hill. A sudden, horrifying thought struck him. The realization crashed down upon him. That wasn't just any frontier noble's house. It was his family's home. The next morning, sunlight streamed through his window, bringing with it the dawn of a dreadful new reality. He slumped forward, collapsing onto his bed in utter despair. He buried his face in his hands, thinking this was the absolute worst-case scenario. The prospect of living with a woman like that was terrifying. His mind conjured an image of a future filled with her scornful laughter as she insulted him day after day. It would be a living hell. As he wallowed in misery, Seabass entered the room to announce that the young master's fiancée would be arriving soon. Ragnar felt a sense of finality. It was over. To make matters worse, he would also have to attend the academy with her. Now dressed in formal attire, he confronted his butler. He questioned Seabass, arguing that Alicia was a noblewoman groomed solely for the crown prince and asking what the point was of bringing her to their house. Seabass's reply was blunt. It was to get rid of her and to set an example. The butler then added with a strangely cheerful demeanor that the brave territory has a rather high mortality rate, a fact that left Ragnar speechless. Seabass explained that to keep the brave house alive, all of the survivors of the war were doing their best. The household staff, a collection of maids, a chef, and a guard, all appeared more like battle-hardened veterans than simple servants. Seabass walks alongside Ragnar down a long, wood-paneled corridor, reminding the young master that he, too, needs to step up to his responsibilities. Ragnar brushes off the comment with a casual, yeah, I get it. Their conversation ends as they step outside the manor. Before them, a carriage drawn by two white horses approaches the main gate, signaling the arrival of their new lady. He stands beside Seabass, a bead of sweat on his temple, his expression tense as he watches the carriage draw nearer. The carriage halts, and an attendant in a dark dress bows her head, announcing to her passenger, "My lady, we have arrived." A single, elegant shoe steps down onto the ground. From the carriage emerges Alicia Oldwood. Her gaze is hard, her posture rigid, and a severe burn scar covers the entire left side of her face, from her forehead down to her cheek. As Seabass steps forward to formally welcome her, introducing himself and expressing it as an honor to receive her, Ragnar can only stare, utterly stunned by her appearance. The butler, noticing his master's blatant shock, delivers a sharp thwack to the back of his head, exclaiming, "Young master." Alicia's expression remains unchanged by the commotion. She looks directly at Ragnar, her voice flat as she remarks that his reaction to her face is just what she expected. He stammers, trying to recover from his gaffe. He begins to ask how she got the burn, but immediately catches himself, insisting it's all right if she doesn't wish to speak of it. Then his demeanor shifts entirely. A warm, genuine smile spreads across his face as he reassures her, explaining that an injury like that is a pretty normal occurrence in the brave territory. His words strike her with unexpected force. Her eyes widen in pure, unadulterated surprise. She questions his assessment, unable to believe he finds her scar normal. He simply confirms it with a cheerful, straightforward, yeah. He elaborates on his perspective, explaining that in his territory, soldiers and adventurers are constantly covered in wounds. He calmly surmises that her burn must be from a duel. Her gaze lowers as she reflects on his words. She acknowledges to herself that it is, indeed, quite a large scar. The memory of her peers' cruelty surfaces. They had whispered behind her back that her pretty face was ruined, a state they deemed perfect for someone living in disgrace, and that anyone who saw it would be instantly repulsed. His attention then shifts to her circumstances, wondering aloud why a duke's daughter is traveling alone without even a maid. Just then, Seabass announces that Lady Alicia's attendant is now taking her leave, catching the young woman by surprise. A heavy silence falls between them as the lone carriage that brought her attendant pulls away, disappearing down the road into the distance. Seabass confirms the stark reality of her arrival. A small carriage, a single piece of luggage, and no servants. It was all the information needed to discern her desperate situation. Ragnar studies her face, observing an expression that seems to have given up on everything. It is a look of total resignation, reminding him of a captured enemy soldier. As Seabass gestures for Lady Alicia to follow him, Ragnar watches them go. A thought crystallizes in his mind. This is completely different from what he had expected. He had anticipated someone arrogant and imperious. A memory of her with a condescending, mocking laugh flashes through his mind, a stark contrast to the quiet, defeated woman before him. He gestures forward, offering to show Alicia to her room. She responds with a quiet, hesitant sound. As she begins to follow, he reaches out and gently touches her shoulder, asking her to wait just a moment. In a flash, his hand clenches with a sharp, crushing sound. His expression turns serious as he stands beside a motionless Alicia. His eyes narrow, his focus locked onto the spot he just struck, breaking the tense silence. Alicia asks if there was some dust on her. Ragnar quickly dismisses it, claiming his own clothes are dustier. She apologizes, explaining that her clothes are simply old, her expression a mixture of confusion and weariness. He watches her, his fist clenching tightly as the gravity of the situation begins to settle in his mind. Opening his hand, he reveals the crushed remains of a demon bug. These entities are curses born from grudges, and to be haunted by even one means a happy life is impossible. He looks at Alicia and remarks aloud that she must have quite a few enemies. His internal thoughts are more frantic. He realizes there were about 100 of them clinging to her, and the number of demon bugs directly corresponds to the amount of hostility aimed at a person. He considers the terrifying implication. A normal person infested by so many of these bugs would be driven completely insane. And yet, Alicia seems perfectly calm, showing no signs of breaking down at all. This profound contradiction forces him to reevaluate everything. He decides to think about it from another angle, recalling that Alicia is a lady educated to become a queen. With that in mind, he questions why she would ever suddenly start a duel with a commoner. The official story no longer makes sense. He considered the structure of this world, realizing it was akin to a game. In such a world, a villain is a necessary component to drive the story, and he began to suspect that Alicia's entire existence had been warped to fulfill that very purpose. As he looked upon Alicia, he grimly acknowledged that he knew the ending to her story. A sense of shared misfortune washed over him. They were both just puppets, tossed about by the whims of fate. He recalled the grim finale from the game's narrative. Her engagement broken, Alicia would cling to her hatred, eventually making a pact with a devil and transforming into a monster. In her subsequent rampage, the entire Brave territory was annihilated. He understood with dawning horror that this destruction was an inevitability, and worse, that he himself did not appear in the game at all, meaning Alicia would kill him at some point. The realization was sickening. The weight of this future pressed down on him. He crossed his arms, then ran a hand through his hair in distress. If the current path held, his territory was doomed. He felt trapped, realizing both he and Alicia were being manipulated by destiny, and he desperately searched for a course of action. Then, a resolution formed in his mind. He would not accept this fate. Instead, he would personally intervene. He would help Alicia change her path and reclaim her life. As if sensing his shift in purpose, Alicia spoke with a quiet resignation. She reasoned that if their doom was sealed regardless, it was better to face it with a positive outlook. He picked up her train of thought, adding that if any misfortune should befall them while they were together. At that moment, a dark, beetle-like demon bug scurried across the path directly in front of Alicia's feet. He would simply kill whatever was responsible. His words were punctuated by the swift, decisive motion of his foot coming down, crushing the demon bug into oblivion. Stunned by his declaration, Alicia looked up at him. A newfound resolve flickered in her eyes as she found her own words, stammering that she, too, wanted to fight back against the world that had condemned them. He met her gaze with a gentle, reassuring smile, telling her not to worry. Beneath the warm expression, however, his determination remained firm and unwavering. He stretches his arms behind his head, a renewed sense of purpose filling him. With a confident smile, he declares that he'll do his best. Alicia walks beside him, observing his sudden change in demeanor. His carefree smile catches her off guard. She reflects internally that having someone give her such a look is a new and unfamiliar experience. The thought lingers, and a shadow of contemplation crosses her features. She tries to recall the last time she experienced such a simple, genuine moment. As she takes a step forward, the question remains unanswered in her mind, a puzzle from a past she can't quite place. She watches him walk ahead through the gates, a single thought crystallizing in her mind. What an odd person. Unbeknownst to her, something new is secretly beginning to grow within the villainess's heart. Alicia Oldwood remained isolated in her room. She ate the meals that were brought to her, but did not lash out or speak ill of anyone, simply staying cooped up in silence. As for Ragnar, his response was far more direct. He slammed his fist against the wall, frustrated by the buzzing presence of a demon bug. He vented his annoyance to Seabass, explaining that he was busy exterminating the irritating pests. He pointed out the immense number of them, asking his butler for help. The young master considered tracing the bugs back to their source to destroy it, but then hesitated, realizing that causing such a commotion would result in the dissolution of the house. He knew that fighting wasn't the answer. More importantly, he needed to do something about Lady Alicia's heart, which was attracting the demon bugs. He felt helpless, reflecting that the Brave family only knows how to fight. His entire life had been training in monster extermination, Alicia was the first girl his age he had ever truly met. Sensing his master's conflict, Seabass offered simple reassurance, telling him it would be fine. This prompted Ragna to wonder aloud what a normal youth was even supposed to be. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Recalling social events at the academy, he decided to imitate a tea party by having breakfast with Alicia to build a connection. With newfound purpose, he approached her door and knocked, announcing that breakfast was ready. He then burst through the door with overwhelming energy, shouting for her to wake up and eat with him. Alicia, already dressed, appeared and calmly stated that she was already awake and that he was about to break the door. Ragna was taken aback, admitting he'd been worried she might do something drastic. Soon after, they sat together at the breakfast table, an air of awkwardness between them. With a towel tied around his head, Ragna began repairing the damaged doorframe with a hammer. Alicia watched him, flustered by his rough approach and wondering what would have happened if the door had actually broken. He told her not to worry, as he was well practiced in repairs, and urged her to enjoy her breakfast and coffee. Following his suggestion, she hesitantly raised the teacup to her lips and took a small sip. The taste was a shock. She coughed, exclaiming that it was too bitter. Ragna, startled, asked what was wrong. Wiping her mouth, Alicia apologized and explained that it was her first time drinking coffee, as she normally drank tea at home. He could only stare, stunned by the revelation. He apologetically explains his inability to provide sugar for the coffee, noting its extreme expense in their world. Alicia, however, reassures him that it is perfectly fine. After he cautions her about drinking it before bed, she takes a sip and is surprised by its inherent sweetness. They then begin their meal, the sound of Ragna crunching on his food filling the air. Her curiosity piqued, Alicia asks what he is eating. He calmly replies that it's monster meat, explaining that the men of the Brave family are raised on it. She recoils in shock, questioning if it's poisonous. He elaborates that one develops a tolerance by eating it from a young age. Though the taste is unpleasant, it becomes an invaluable food source during wartime. As he finishes, Alicia quietly calls out to him. She asks why he handles such tasks himself. With a somber look, he explains that they're simply shorthanded, as most of their servants recently died in battle. Alicia listens, a look of understanding dawning on her face. He continues, revealing the core philosophy of his people. What they honor most is the act of surviving tenaciously and always getting back up. As he speaks these words, his hand reaches out, his fingers gently touching the scar on her cheek. He tells her that where he comes from, they do not deny their scars. They are a source of pride. He looks at her with sincerity, calling her a truly remarkable person and admitting that he has scars of his own. Suddenly realizing his forwardness, he pulls back, flustered, explaining it's a habit from inspecting soldiers' wounds. He then quickly changes the subject, revealing he came to invite her out. He explains that in the face of the vast nature of their land, human conflicts feel insignificant. Alicia, still blushing from his earlier gesture, quietly agrees that they feel small. He watches her, waiting for an answer. After a moment of silence, Alicia agrees to his proposal. She formally asks him to show her around his land, and he responds with a bright smile, delighted by her acceptance. Their journey will take them into the distant mountains. The journey proves more arduous than anticipated. He leads her by the hand through the untamed wilderness, navigating the rocky, overgrown terrain. Alicia, clearly struggling, laments her decision, muttering that while she did agree to come, she had no idea the tour would involve such a trek deep into the mountains. He explains their location, the Udana mountain range, a massive formation on the edge of the Brave territory. This area is rich with rare plants and valuable minerals, resources that cannot be found in the royal capital. She confesses her surprise, admitting she had assumed they would be visiting a town to see local specialty goods. With a gentle smile, he confirms that such things don't exist here, a fact she likely noticed during her initial journey to the territory. He elaborates on the harsh realities of frontier life, explaining that the only real entertainment is gambling. He recounts a story of someone betting on his own father's death in battle, adding grimly that Seabass took care of the matter. She processes this grim anecdote, her expression troubled. After a moment, she dismisses her concern, stating that it's fine. She reasons that if this is what is considered normal here, she must accept it, just as she did with the monster meat coffee. He observes her quietly, recognizing her effort to adapt to this unfamiliar and harsh environment. Seeing her fatigue, he suggests they take a break by a small, clear spring. As she cups the water in her hands and drinks, her eyes widen in surprise at how delicious it is. He explains that the mountain range's high altitude and low evaporation rate result in exceptionally pristine water, a quality of clarity she would never find in the capital. He suggests that even though this land is fundamentally harsh, learning about its unique aspects can make living here more bearable. His words resonate with her as she scoops more water, contemplating the idea of learning. He continues, sharing a core tenet of the Brave family. Survival depends on knowledge. One must deeply understand both enemies and allies, as all share the same earth, and never underestimate them. He adds that he's heard a similar proverb from a distant world. Alicia quietly affirms her understanding. He concludes by summarizing the fundamental philosophy of the frontier. In this land, people decide everything for themselves, basing their actions and beliefs on their own understanding of the world around them. For that personal truth, they're all willing to fight. The sun rises over a group of frontiersmen, gazing out at the vast, challenging territory they call home. He explains to Alicia that he has seen the expressions of the people living in his territory, and it is not the kind of place described in the rumors she may have heard. He continues, stating that while it's okay to laugh about the rumors, the people of the Brave territory do not laugh. It is a conscious decision, made after much contemplation, fitting for a place where people gamble with life and death for entertainment. With that thought hanging in the air, he suddenly bounds forward over the rocks, urging her to shake it off and move onward, as their destination is just ahead. Startled, Alicia calls out for him to wait. He turns back to her with a strained smile, prompting a confused response. She points out the contradiction. First he says not to laugh, and now he is telling her to laugh. In response, he simply takes her hand. The unexpected gesture makes her quietly realize just how strange he truly is. Her thought is cut short as she looks up, her eyes widening in utter astonishment at the sight that has just come into view. A breathtaking panorama unfolds before them. A massive, sun-drenched valley carved into countless terraced fields, a testament to generations of human effort against the wilderness. Standing beside her, Ragna watches her reaction with a gentle smile. Alicia, still stunned by the magnificent view, can only manage a single, breathy word of awe. After they've taken in the view, he lays out a blanket and begins to unpack a light snack, suggesting she must be hungry after their walk. As he does, he asks if he might pose a question to Lord Ragna. He tells her it's fine to call him by his name without any formal titles, as he isn't accustomed to them. Flustered, she protests, but he dismisses it as a small matter. After a moment of hesitation, she quietly tries it out. Ragna, he poses a difficult question to Alicia, asking what she would do in a situation where, after endless worry and making a decision, she still ends up regretting an unavoidable outcome. He wonders aloud if there's a real solution, or just a nice-sounding answer that time is supposed to solve. He continues, explaining that when you choose one side, you inevitably lose the other. A memory of a past battle, bodies strewn across the ground, flashes in his mind as he states that nothing can be done for what has been lost. He then asks her directly, what if there's nothing left? Alicia quietly responds that if she were to lose that one thing, then nothing would be left. She reflects on her past, revealing that she has lived her entire life for a single, specific purpose. Her composure breaks as the weight of this purpose overwhelms her. In a pained outburst, she declares that as a duchess, she has already died, and that this is the very reason she came to this forsaken land. Snapping back to the present, she quickly apologizes for her improper remark, blaming it on demon bugs. Ragna watches her, realizing she's trying to sever these painful feelings and wonders if such a thing is even possible. In response to her attempt to dismiss her own pain, his hand clenches into a tight fist. He calls out her name with sudden gravity, Alicia. He looks her directly in the eyes and makes a solemn vow. I'll protect you from now on, always. Alicia is stunned into silence, her eyes wide with surprise. He then smiles, noting that she doesn't sound used to being addressed so informally. He clarifies his promise, stating that even if the Duchy of Alicia is no more, she is now Alicia of the Brave family, and he will protect her no matter what. He then admits with a slight awkwardness that he even practiced delivering the line. He explains his image training, which involved imagining himself making the declaration to posh nobles from the capital. Alicia thinks to herself that his practice was wasted and finds the idea of him rehearsing such a thing ridiculous. However, a soft blush appears on her cheeks. She turns to him and admits that while she may have been overthinking things, she doesn't dislike his vow. She finds it straightforward and easy to understand. Ragna is visibly taken aback by her sincere and positive reaction. She looked down at their interlocked fingers, a pinky promise sealing his vow. She had to be certain, asking if he would still protect her, even if returning to the academy with him meant facing widespread malice and hostility. He responded without a moment's hesitation, a bright, confident smile spreading across his face. Of course, he would. He was good at handling such matters, and she should leave it all to him. With the promise made, he turned his head and called out to someone unseen. Onyx, did you see that? In response to his call, a colossal shadow fell over them. A massive, horned black dragon descended, its sheer size dwarfing the landscape. Its deep voice rumbled, confirming that it had indeed witnessed the vow made by Ragna Brave. Ragna simply smiled, explaining that the black dragon was his friend, Onyx, and he had wanted to ensure his friend witnessed the vow. The revelation was too much for Alicia. Overwhelmed by the shock, she fainted on the spot. Ragna cried out her name in alarm as the dragon drily noted her weakness. Their first date, fraught with challenges, had certainly ended with a bang. Alicia Oldwood calls out to Ragna Brave, remarking that they seem to have grown closer after their first date. When he agrees, she questions him about the chaotic state of the room and the dragon from the previous day. Ragna realizes she is talking about Onyx and explains his thinking. He believed it would be romantic to make a vow in front of a dragon. He continues, clarifying that Onyx is a dragon living deep in the mountain range, and that thanks to its blessing, the demon bugs have disappeared. He seems pleased with this outcome, but Alicia is taken aback, asking why he can remain so calm about the entire situation. Seabass steps in to provide context, reminding the young master that he had previously challenged Lord Onyx to a one-on-one duel that ended in a draw. This is why the great dragon acknowledged him. Ragna quietly admits that he almost died in the process. She grows flustered, lamenting that she must have looked like a fool for panicking. Ragna reassures her that it's fine, as they were ultimately able to negotiate with the creature. Elsewhere, while working on paperwork, a bearded staff member tells Alicia that everyone was constantly surprised when they first arrived. He assures her that, eventually, she will no longer be surprised by anything. The scene shifts to a room overwhelmed with stacks of documents and ledgers. Ragna gestures toward the mess, identifying it as the current problem, while Alicia looks on with a slight blush as other staff members toil away. He explains that even with his knowledge of modern society, organizing this amount of information will take a significant amount of time. In response, Alicia extends her hand, her expression firm, and simply tells him, "Lend it to me." He is momentarily surprised by her initiative. He had been making slow progress, noting strange cash flows and purchasing period changes. He calls out to Seabass, asking for past documents now that he has finished confirming the current numbers. After some time, Ragna sighs in relief, believing the work to be mostly sorted out. The focus then turns to Alicia, who stands with an aura of intense competence, holding a finished stack of organized papers. Her work astounds the staff, who praise her enthusiastically. Seabass remarks that it is no wonder she is called a talented woman. Watching them, Ragna rests his chin on his hand, musing that modern times must lack basic education, before catching himself with a quiet awe. He watched her, a thought forming in his mind. When the demon bugs weren't attached, Alicia could smile just like a normal girl. As if sensing his gaze, she turned and addressed him directly, announcing her intention to help with the mansion's cleaning. The nearby staff reacted with immediate shock, protesting that they couldn't possibly allow Lady Alicia to perform such tasks. She calmly explained her position, stating that for now, she was a servant of the Brave family, a human, and that she wanted to experience all the things she had never been able to do before. As the maid stammered, Seabass remarked on what a good child she was, encouraging Ragna that they, too, should do their best. Later, Seabass informed Ragna that he had left some work for him, intending to harden his own heart for the tasks ahead. Ragna, however, was focused on a different matter, noting the unusually high prices in a new weapon shop and bluntly asking Seabass if he was some kind of demon for suggesting it. His mind raced, connecting the dots. The weapon shop had opened on the very day Lady Alicia arrived, and its proprietors were apparently from the royal capital. He recalled the intelligence gathered on their business practices. They operated in a style common to the capital, presenting simple consumables as if they were rare treasures, a strategy unlikely to turn a profit in the frontier. The true purpose became clear. Seabass confirmed that the most likely intention of these individuals was to keep a watchful eye on Alicia. With the situation laid bare, he asked the young master what he would do. In response, he took action. As night fell over the town, Ragna slipped out of the mansion and moved silently through the darkened streets. He rendezvoused with Seabass near their destination. The butler urged caution, revealing that skilled individuals were inside. When Ragna asked how he knew, Seabass explained he had heard it from a nearby adventurer. The information came from a direct source. The adventurer had confessed to Seabass that he had grown angry with the shop's arrogant business methods and decided to try and steal something valuable from them. He recalled the adventurer's testimony. The man's right arm was gone before he even realized it, the sword's movement completely invisible. Ragna understood with certainty that the shop staff had severed the man's arm without even unsheathing their blades. His thoughts turned to the individuals inside. One of them was a magician. In this world overflowing with magic essence, those who could manipulate it were known as sorcerers. He knew that those who suffered most during the war were the ones who faced enemy magicians. It was clear now, their target was Alicia, and they intended to eliminate her. With his mind made up, he kicked the door of the establishment open with a resounding boom. Inside, the occupants were startled, demanding to know who he was. They quickly recognized him as Ragna Brave and questioned his purpose there. Ragna calmly stated that they were the ones who had made the first move. He continued, pointing out that they seemed to be snooping around his territory. He then offered a simple proposition. If they explained their reasons, he wouldn't do anything too harsh. Instead of answering, the men drew their swords, their expressions menacing as they began to surround him. Ragna's gaze sharpened. His suspicions were now confirmed. They were drawing weapons in the presence of the local lord. One of the guards, a bald man, scoffed, claiming he had no memory of laying a hand on anyone. Another guard added with a smirk that if they silenced Ragna right there would be no problem, as they wouldn't be caught with weapons. Their intentions clear, the three men lunged at him at once, shouting at the naive third son for coming alone. Swords swung towards him from multiple directions. Their combined assault was met with overwhelming force. Ragna moved in a blur, driving his fist into the face of one attacker with such power that the man was sent flying backward. He thought only one word: weak. In an instant, it was over. All the assailants lay defeated on the floor, groaning in pain. Ragna stood calmly amidst the aftermath. His attention then shifted to a figure seated in the shadows. A hooded person with long, light hair clapped softly, a smile on their face. They remarked on his wonderful strength, especially for a 15-year-old. Ragna looked towards the figure and addressed them directly. "My lord." The hooded man smiled, identifying his opponent as the magician before asking if he might pose a single question. Ragna ignored this, his expression grim as he cut in with his own urgent query. How is Miss Alicia doing? In response, the hooded man burst into manic laughter. He delighted in the mere thought of the prodigy, Alicia, falling under the influence of his gift, as a monstrous praying mantis demon materialized behind him. The effect of his power was felt miles away, as Alicia herself flinched, recognizing the familiar, malevolent presence. The confirmation that this man was Alicia's tormentor enraged Ragna. He lunged, grabbing the man's robes and roaring that he knew he was the one who had been sending swarms of demon bugs after her. The giant mantis struck in defense of its master, its claw crashing down, but Ragna was too quick, using the creature's own arm as a path to press his attack. Thrown to the ground, the hooded man stared up, his mind reeling. He could not believe that Lady Alicia could possibly be living freely with a smile on her face. Ragna declared that he wouldn't be stopped, revealing he sent his feelings to her daily to counteract the curse meant to make her resent everyone. He leaped to strike the mantis, but his blade failed to pierce its hide, much to the hooded man's bewilderment. Despite the creature's defense, the hooded man still cried out in pain from the force of Ragna's assault. Ragna's gaze was cold as he promised to deal with the pest the man had been sending. He now stood over the defeated man amidst the wreckage. He offered a deal, reveal who was behind this, and he would be allowed to live. He brings his sword down decisively upon the hooded man, declaring that this is retribution for all the trouble caused to Alicia. The defeated man can only hiss a repeated threat from the ground, vowing to curse Ragna again and again. Unfazed by the threat, he turns away with a confident smirk, revealing that he is already cursed. As Seabass approaches to ask if the confrontation is over, Ragna calmly instructs his butler to handle the cleanup, a request to which Seabass readily agrees. Later, under the starry sky, he poses a question to Seabass. He wants to know if there's any way for him to keep Alicia close by his side once they both go to the academy. The butler misinterprets the question entirely, his mind jumping to the scandalous possibility of them living together and the potential for pregnancy while still students. Ragna, mortified, hastily clarifies that his intentions were nothing of the sort. The night deepens around the quiet estate. Walking alone through the darkened town, Ragna reflects on his recent actions. He wonders if this is the most he has done since avenging his father and questions when his heart grew so numb. His thoughts then drift to the future, filled with uncertainty about whether he will be able to fit in at the academy. At the same time, Alicia sits at her desk, a determined expression on her face as she prepares for their time at the academy. She resolves to make sure she tells Ragna everything. With these mutual feelings in their hearts, the night grows deeper around them. A few months later, Alicia Oldwood is found working in the garden, her hands in the soil. She remarks with a blush that they depart for the royal capital tomorrow, expressing disappointment that she won't be able to harvest the daikon radishes in time. Ragna Brave and the household staff watch from a distance, observing the supposed villainess performing manual labor. The resources that were once allocated for her higher education have been entirely redirected to household chores. This shift has resulted in her becoming a truly talented woman, adept at cleaning, cooking, and serving Ragna with a gentle smile. As dawn breaks over the fields of the estate, one of the maids calls out Alicia's name with great urgency. Her call signals the moment of departure. The entire household staff gathers to see Ragna and Alicia off. The maid clings to Alicia's leg, tearfully begging her not to go. The others comment that it would be perfectly fine for Lady Alicia to remain at the mansion, a stark contrast in treatment compared to the young master. The maid promises to send the vegetables to the academy when they're ready, insisting Alicia eat them with everyone. Amidst the commotion, the dark-haired maid presents the other with a thick leather collar. She explains it was something the young master used to wear when he was little, and that it should be used to reprimand him in the event of any outrageous behavior. With final shouts of encouragement and concern, urging Ragna to stay warm, eat his vegetables, and protect Alicia under threat of punishment. The staff waves as the carriage pulls away from the estate. Inside the carriage, Alicia smiles warmly at Ragna, noting how loved he is by everyone and admitting she's a bit envious. He looks away, quietly acknowledging that this is the first time in his life he has ever traveled outside his territory. His thoughts drift back to the people he is leaving behind, recalling fond moments with the staff and craftsmen. With a final, resolute thought of his departure, the carriage continues its journey, the landscape shifting to a view of a vast, churning sea. Sometime later, Seabass announces that the royal capital is now in sight. As Ragna turns to look, Alicia, blushing deeply, admits that what she is about to say is pathetic, but she has a favor to ask him. She asks him earnestly if he could show her how to buy a ticket and ride the train when they arrive at the station. Ragna is stunned into silence by the request. Alicia giggles, telling him not to laugh and reminding him that since it's his first outing as well, he can just leave it to her. She observed the bustling streets of the royal capital, noting how crowded it would be. With a playful smile, she suggested putting a collar on Ragna to prevent him from getting lost. He, however, was taken aback, wondering what kind of strange game this was. His attention was then captured by the sheer scale of the city before them, the royal capital, Ether. It was a metropolis of over 1 million people, shielded by a barrier attributed to an ancient sage. He remarked that compared to the vast, but sparsely populated Brave territory, this place felt cramped. With few monsters and no wars, he understood why everyone flocked here. As they made their way through the city, Ragna inquired if their dormitory was located within the school grounds. Alicia confirmed that it was, adding that there were separate dormitories for boys and girls, a fact she seemed to look forward to. Their journey continued as they boarded a train, leaving the city streets behind. Their destination, however, was a shock. They stood before a dilapidated, shabby building that was to be their new home. Ragna was appalled, not only by its condition, but by the realization that boys and girls would be living together. As he processed this, Alicia noticed a letter addressed to him from Seabass, while Ragna pointed out on a map just how far this place was from a school. She read the letter and understood. It was Seabass's plan. By having her live in a rundown dormitory and endure public humiliation, he intended to convince the nobles who opposed her return of her changed character. It was a calculated move to manage her reputation. He, reading over her shoulder, saw a silver lining. If no one else was around, it would be convenient, though he acknowledged that a thorough cleaning was necessary. He even mused about the possibility of growing vegetables in the courtyard. His practical thoughts were shattered as he read further. He crushed the letter in his fist upon reading a line about condoms being in his room. He realized Seabass's true intention was simply to ensure they lived together. The letter concluded with a blunt instruction. Ragna had to pass the exam to enter the same upper class as Lady Alicia. Good luck. He considered the weight of this task. Ethernam Academy gathered nearly all the noble children of the country, and its classes were divided by rank. The upper class was reserved for those with the potential for a royal marriage, while all others were relegated to the lower class. There was, however, a special provision. If a commoner's magic or knowledge was deemed exceptional, they could be granted the status of descendants of sages and enroll, bypassing the usual noble requirements. He knew their standing was precarious. They were merely nobles from a remote land, and she was branded a villainess. Despite the odds stacked against them, his resolve was already set. He promises Alicia that if the academy entrance is a contest of skill, he will ensure they win. His vow hangs in the air as he arrives at the Grand Academy building, only to be immediately chastised for his tardiness. His determination leads him to the academy grounds, where he faces a large, imposing teacher. Ragna, now in sportswear, apologizes for getting lost. The teacher clicks his tongue in annoyance, remarking on the audacity of a noble from a remote land, making an upper-class instructor wait. Dismissing him as a slowpoke, the teacher directs him to the first task, a basic magic test, ordering him to shoot his maximum output at a designated target. The examiner crosses his arms with an air of profound boredom, muttering, "Good grief," and wondering why he was assigned this duty. Ragna, meanwhile, takes a ready stance, preparing to follow the instruction. Despite the examiner's grumbling, he focuses his energy, his gaze fixed on the unseen target as he prepares to unleash a torrent of power. The resulting blast is immense. The examiner is caught completely off guard, his sportswear shredding from a sheer force of the magical pressure as the wall behind him begins to crumble. The shockwave carves a path of destruction through the testing area, obliterating stone and earth. The examiner can only stare in wide-eyed shock, his face contorted in disbelief at the raw power. Amidst the settling dust, he turns and innocently asks the teacher if he passed. The examiner, sweating and utterly stunned by the display, can only wonder what just happened and who this boy truly is. He manages to state that there are more tests. Before the man can fully process the event, another, more composed examiner approaches. This new official notes Ragna's skill in magic, but states that, unfortunately, he will never pass this test. He then hands Ragna a practice sword, declaring that the next test is swordsmanship. The rules are simple: defeat and pass. The first examiner, incensed by the challenge being directed at him, roars and raises his own weapon. The second examiner clarifies that magic is prohibited. If Ragna can no longer fight, he fails. Ragna calmly agrees, stating they should finish this quickly, which only enrages the first examiner further, who bellows that he's a barbarian. The insult is met with blinding speed. In an instant, Ragna moves, crouching low to the ground as the combat examiner is sent flying backward, his practice sword shattering into splinters from the force of a single, unseen blow. He looks down at the examiner's broken practice sword, noticing something glinting within the splintered wood. "Oh," he remarks, holding up the two pieces, "you had iron inside." He then glances at his own intact wooden sword, a look of mild confusion on his face. "Mine was just a normal wooden sword, though. That's strange, isn't it?" His question hangs in the air as a new voice cuts through the silence, asking about the commotion. Ragna turns to face Alicia Oldwood, his expression hardening. He confronts her directly, explaining that his own sword broke because of her sabotage. He accuses her of intending to fail him if he was left unable to fight. Before Alicia can respond, another figure steps into the examination hall, his presence immediately commanding attention. Ragna's eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the man, the school principal, Vorzia Grand Cascade. The unexpected arrival of such a high-ranking official leaves Ragna stammering, turning back to Alicia to question if this was her plan. Ragna Brave addresses the imposing figure before him, Vorzia Grand Cascade, the school director. He confirms his understanding that today is the day of the transfer exam. As he observes the young man, the director internally notes Ragna's title of sage and his connection to a ducal house. He muses that it would be troublesome to attract his attention. He strokes his long beard, his gaze unwavering as he scrutinizes Ragna, who stands silently, awaiting the verdict. After a moment of thought, Vorzia delivers his judgment with a simple declaration. You pass. Ragna's eyes widen in shock. He quickly offers his thanks, but questions if it is truly acceptable, pointing out that there is little difference in bloodline between the higher and lower ranks. Ignoring the comment, Vorzia poses a direct question to the young man, asking if he wishes to join the upper class. His thoughts immediately drift to an image of Alicia Oldwood. Her gentle smile is silent, compelling reason for his ambitions. He turns back to the director, his expression firm and resolute. He states that there is someone he must protect here. Vorzia accepts this, replying, very well. As Vorzia turns to leave, the examiner from before rushes to his side, protesting the decision. He points out that Ragna is from the Forsaken Lands, and that his fiancée just caused an incident. Vorzia cuts him off, stating plainly that he acknowledges Ragna's admission into the upper class. The examiner flinches as the school director whirls on him, his face a mask of fury, and bellows, "You idiotic fool!" His voice crackling with authority. The school director demanded to know the examiner's position. The man identified himself as a teacher, prompting a sharp retort from Vorzia. If he perceives a problem, he should act as an educator and guide students before trouble can even begin. With the matter settled, he turned his attention back to Ragna and Alicia. He informed Ragna Brave that, as a special exception, he would be permitted to use a particular dormitory. Vorzia then sternly advised both students to maintain a proper and decent relationship, to which a startled Ragna could only agree. As he walked away, a thought surfaced in Ragna's mind. He realized that, in the original story, this event was also a catalyst for the protagonist's growth. He pictured Alicia returning home, announcing her arrival to the imposing figure of the school director. His reverie was broken by Alicia rushing towards him, calling his name. She was now dressed in a new, ornate uniform. With concern etched on her face, she asked if he was all right and if anyone had said anything strange to him. Ragna, taken aback by her appearance, simply asked if the uniform was for a fitting, noting that it looked cute. A flustered Alicia insisted she was fine. Now seated with a warm drink, he calmly informed her that he had passed the exam. He admitted it wasn't a test he was particularly keen on taking, but after the ordeal, he had succeeded. Alicia, stunned by the news, could only ask what had transpired. Her expression turned serious. She looked at him intently and confessed she had been wondering for some time, finally asking him directly, what exactly was this magic disease he suffered from? He found it difficult to explain, starting by mentioning his ability to use all the basic forms of magic. As Alicia began to add that the thing she excelled at was something else entirely, a loud growl from her stomach abruptly cut her off. A deep blush spread across her face, her expression a mixture of shock and utter mortification. Seeing her embarrassment, Ragna stood up and cheerfully suggested they have dinner. He declared that since they would be busy at the academy starting the next day, they needed a nutritious meal. As she watched him, a quiet thought formed in her mind. She realized that she didn't mind what anyone said to her, as long as he was there with her. She looked over at Ragna, her expression softening as she quietly admitted that he was probably stronger than her. The unexpected compliment caught him by surprise. The strength she spoke of was not physical, but the rare ability to endure mental pain, a resilience she noted that even seasoned soldiers seldom possess. She stood firm in her self-knowledge. Understanding this was the core of her being. As they walked through the academy grounds, they became the subject of gossip. Other students pointed out the scar on Alicia's face from her duel, wondering who the man beside her was and concluding that her marriage prospects were now ruined. Hearing their whispers, Ragna silently urged himself to remain calm. One student, however, voiced a particularly vile thought, musing that with her status diminished, he might be able to take her as his concubine. The words had barely left his lips when the student suddenly collapsed, foaming at the mouth. The surrounding crowd cried out in shock as Alicia, flustered, turned to Ragna and told him to stop, though he feigned ignorance. Later, inside a lecture hall, a teacher stood before the class, delivering a lesson from the front of the room. Ragna let out a yawn, reflecting internally that all he had done was direct a small amount of killing intent, questioning the weakness of the mainlanders. Nearby, another student asked if the protagonist in the story they were studying awakens as a saint in the final stage. The teacher paused, her mind drifting to an image of the protagonist, a beautiful, winged girl as radiant as a clear blue sky. Despite the vivid memory, she struggled to recall the character's name. From his seat, Ragna provided the answer to the unspoken question, stating the name was Mariana Ocean. Impressed by his knowledge, the teacher elaborated. She explained that the magic most frequently used by the sage in the story was one with no attribute, and to master such a power, one would need to reach the pinnacle of nothingness. In the classroom, a female student stands with an air of unshakable confidence, her expression as clear and smug as a cloudless sky. She adjusts her glasses with a knowing smile. Seated at his desk, Ragna's eyes widen in disbelief. A single bead of sweat traces its way down his temple as the jarring recognition hits him. It is her, the heroine. Inside a classroom, a teacher with glasses in her hair and a bun smiles, confirming a student's answer was correct, even though it had been a trick question. The student, a girl with braided hair and round glasses named Mariana Ocean, adjusts her spectacles with a pleased expression, thinking to herself that this was to be expected from a sage's pupil. From his seat, Ragna Brave watches her with a look of surprise. Her composure suddenly shatters as a shocking realization dawns on her. She is the heroine of an otome game. She recalls how people have been politely switching seats with her and that she is supposed to begin a romance with the prince. In her panic, she notices a crack in her glasses, lamenting that she should have asked for a seat closer to the front. As she frets, Alicia Oldwood turns and kindly offers to switch seats. Flustered, Mariana insists that it's fine and she can manage on her own. With a sigh, Alicia accepts her refusal. The brief commotion catches Ragna's attention, and he quietly murmurs Alicia's name. Overhearing him, Mariana springs to her feet, bowing deeply and apologizing profusely for the disturbance. Later, in a quieter setting, Alicia, now in a simpler dress, holds a plate while listening to Ragna. He sips from a cup and remarks that it's not something he can ask about, adding that men who dig up the past are no good. Alicia looks on, a question in her eyes. Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass rips through the air as a window behind Alicia explodes inward. Ragna's expression hardens instantly, his hand shooting up in a defensive gesture. The force of the impact is met by a shimmering, curved barrier that materializes just in time. Alicia cries out in shock, instinctively covering her ears as the unseen projectile is deflected. Once the danger has passed, she reaches out a tentative hand, touching the invisible surface. She asks Ragna what it is. He calmly explains it's a hidden barrier, noting the damage and that he will have to repair it later. Alicia stares, bewildered. He continues his explanation, revealing that the magic he is using is a transparent barrier of the holy attribute. He clarifies that it is the very same type of guardian barrier that provides protection for the entire royal capital. Alicia, still processing the barrier, stops him. She asks how he can use magic without incantations, remarking on how convenient it must be. He explains that, for example, most people think of barriers as simple, static walls, like those conjured by robe mages. Picking up a coffee pot, he continues, stating that with chantless casting, the possibilities are far greater. Alicia watches, taken aback, to demonstrate. He pours the coffee, magically shaping the stream into an elaborate form within the cup. He explains that barriers can be molded into any shape, leaving Alicia wide-eyed in astonishment. The magically suspended coffee floats before them. While Mariana marvels at how cute it is, Alicia presses further, asking if there are other differences between common barriers and the one protecting the royal capital. She ponders for a moment, then correctly deduces that the key difference must be the ability to selectively choose what can pass through the barrier. Ragna affirms her conclusion. He elaborates, explaining that advanced barriers can be freely controlled to permit or repel anything. He notes its limitations, however, stating that it cannot separate things that are already blended together, like sugar mixed into coffee. Alicia seems to understand, though Ragna himself looks momentarily confused by his own explanation. Changing the subject, he mentions that they are now out of coffee, as the beans Alicia brought have been used up. Seizing the opening, a blushing Alicia asks if he would like to go out with her later, since he is free. In response to her invitation, he readily agrees, stating that he knows a place that serves delicious coffee. As they walk towards a cafe, Alicia asks how he found out about the place. He replies that a friend told him, prompting a surprised reaction from her. She marvels that he has friends, even in his current situation, once again impressed by it. She explains to Ragna how she learned of the place from a friend. One day, while she was studying in the library during lunch, someone approached her. They bonded over a shared love of coffee, and this new acquaintance recommended the shop. She leads him to the establishment, a coffee specialty shop. As she announces their arrival, Ragna reads the sign, noting the name Ocean. Before he can enter, the door swings open to reveal a young woman with braided hair and glasses. She stares in surprise, asking if the person before her is Alicia. She identifies herself as Mariana and explains she was just wondering why Alicia was standing motionless in front of the store. The sight of her sends a jolt of shock through Ragna. He continues to stare as Alicia formally introduces him to Mariana, confirming that he is the one who truly loves coffee. Mariana, slightly flustered, offers a polite greeting. Upon closer inspection, he asks if she is in the same class as him. Mariana seems surprised by the question, but confirms they are, admitting they have never actually spoken before. Her composure shatters. She stammers a frantic apology, shocked that a noble like Alicia would visit such a place. As she wonders aloud why Alicia is with Ragna, Alicia calmly reveals that he is her fiancé. Mariana then adds that she, too, is of noble status. This information sends Mariana into a full-blown panic. She prostrates herself on the ground, wailing apologies for her ignorance and fearing she will be executed. Ragna can only stare, utterly confused by her extreme reaction. Sometime later, inside the now-quiet coffee shop, Mariana apologizes for losing her composure. Alicia quickly reassures her, stating that she did nothing wrong. Mariana explains she was simply overexcited at the thought of finally making a friend. As she sips her coffee, Alicia reflects on the misunderstanding. She realizes her error. After seeing Mariana drinking coffee in the library, she had mistakenly assumed the girl was a commoner, like herself. As Alicia pondered her own status, Ragna processed a startling new piece of information. He had heard there would be 2 disciples of the sage this year, and had simply assumed it was him and Alicia. Now, he realized there must be a detail that diverged from what he knew of the game. He also mused that while coffee was considered a commoner's drink in this world, he quite enjoyed it. She then turned to Mariana, a gentle smile on her face, and asked if this was the reason she had been acting alone, confirming that Mariana was unaware of the commotion she had caused. The bespectacled girl looked dismayed, confirming it was true and expressing her surprise that such a significant event had occurred without her knowing. She questioned why Alicia hadn't informed her about the uproar surrounding the decision. She became flustered as she explained her predicament, admitting that on that very day, she had mistakenly taken the wrong carriage to the academy. By the time she realized her error, she was no longer in the capital. Hearing this, Ragnar grew suspicious. He questioned why the carriage would go astray on the day of such an important event, wondering if it was a mere coincidence or something more deliberate. His thoughts were interrupted as Alicia remarked to Mariana that while she was said to be a genius at magic, she was also known for being somewhat scatterbrained. Beaming with pride, Mariana readily agreed that she was good at magic. She cheerfully added, however, that her parents often said she was useless at everything else. The mention of her parents caught Ragnar's attention. His question about them, however, was ill-timed. As Alicia quietly chided him, Mariana's expression turned somber. She explained that her parents were dead, having passed away from an illness a year ago. Ragnar immediately apologized for his inconsiderate question. She quickly reassured him that it was fine, her gaze softening. She stated that the only reason she was here now was thanks to them. Her demeanor brightening once more, she remembered her duties as host. Pointing out that she had invited them, but had yet to serve them anything, she graciously offered them both some coffee. Alicia takes a sip of the coffee Mariana prepared, her eyes widening in pleasant surprise as she exclaims how delicious it is. She turns to Mariana, remarking with amazement that it tastes completely different from the coffee Ragnar makes. Ragnar, taking a thoughtful sip himself, concedes that it is indeed different, while Mariana simply smiles. He wonders aloud what could make them so different when they use the same beans. Seabass, enjoying his own cup, Riley suggests that the bitterness in Ragnar's coffee might be a metaphor for his life, a comment that leaves the young master perplexed. He dismisses the thought and turns back to Mariana, declaring that from now on, he will consider her his mentor. Seeing Mariana's flustered reaction, Alicia quickly steps in to assure her that he is only joking. She looks between the two of them, remarking thoughtfully that it's strange. Despite being nobles, they aren't scary at all. Her words are tied to a memory. She recounts how a neighborhood child once warned her that defying nobles, even slightly, would result in death. She continues, explaining that around that same period in her childhood, she was struck by a noble's carriage. The memory is vivid. Lying injured and alone on the dirt road, the people in the carriage showing no concern for her whatsoever, just as the child had predicted. She explains that the accident caused her eyesight to worsen. Her parents, hearing a rumor that coffee improves vision, decided the whole family should start drinking it. And before they knew it, she concludes with a dizzy, ecstatic expression. The entire family had become coffee fanatics, completely absorbed by its richness. As the conversation continued, Alicia turned to Mariana, asking if she was skilled with magic. Mariana affirmed that she was, and that among her skills, there was one she excelled at above all others. She revealed her specialty to be recovery magic, the power to heal people. Alicia reacted with shock, exclaiming that such an ability is extremely rare. Ragnar, listening intently, quietly confirmed her assessment. This revelation prompted Alicia to reflect on the game they knew. In that world, the character of Saint Mariana could perform miracles, healing diseases, exorcising demons, and even regenerating lost limbs. But in this reality, she knew that very few individuals possessed the ability to use recovery magic on others. Mariana then explained her motivation with a somber expression. A year prior, she had been helpless when her parents fell ill. That painful memory drove her to study relentlessly, so that if she ever had someone precious to her in need again, she would have the power to save them. Deeply moved, Alicia embraced her tightly. It was then that Alicia noticed the lack of other customers. The emotional moment was broken as Ragnar admitted that he was the last to enter and had closed the shop door behind him. Alicia stared, wide-eyed with sudden realization. His admission sent her into a fluster. She grabbed him by his shirt, demanding he open the door immediately and accusing him of obstructing business while Mariana watched, a small smile on her face. Mariana, however, calmly defused the situation. She reassured them it was fine, explaining that she had been focusing on her studies lately and had been closing the shop on holidays anyway. With the misunderstanding cleared, Ragnar and Alicia prepared to leave, thanking Mariana for her time. As they departed, Alicia asked why Mariana wasn't going to the academy dormitory, noting that as a sage's child, she would likely be exempt from many rules. She stood in the doorway of her home, a warm and content smile on her face. She simply replied that she liked this house. Her gaze then settled on Alicia, and she offered her support, telling her to let her know if she encountered any problems at the academy. Her kind words left Alicia momentarily stunned, a blush rising to her cheeks. She found Mariana's sincerity dazzling, and replied that her words alone were more than enough, offering a heartfelt thank you. As they stood outside, Ragnar approached. Mariana, with a serious expression, made a strange request, asking him to give Alicia to her. He immediately and firmly refused, leaving Alicia to wonder what they were talking about. He began to walk away with Alicia, who still had a faint blush on her face. As they moved through the night, she looked up at him and asked for his validation, seeking his agreement that she was, in fact, a good girl. Meanwhile, Mariana watched them depart, a thoughtful expression on her face. She reflected on Alicia's beautiful eyes, recognizing them as the eyes of someone who looks at others directly and without pretense. She recalled that even when she first saw Alicia, she had possessed that same unwavering gaze. As they continued their walk beneath the city's spires, Ragna seemed to come to a realization. He remarked that he understood now, musing that people with a strong inner core often develop in such a way. She affirmed his observation with a simple yes. Looking up at him, she then asked if he, too, had seen that quality in someone before. He looked down at her, describing eyes that possess a powerful will, the kind that can resist fate itself. He then added that such eyes were beautiful and cute. The direct compliment caught Alicia completely off guard, causing her to blush deeply. Ragna, perhaps flustered himself, quickly downplayed his words, insisting he wasn't the princely type. And so, the two of them continued on, sharing a moment of casual flirtation. The story was supposed to be simple. A villainess, personified by the sharp-eyed Alicia Oldwood, and a commoner protagonist, the unassuming Mariana Ocean. One was destined to clash with the other. These two fated girls were meant to be locked in battle in a desolate, snowy landscape until one of them was destroyed. But now, in this reality, they have lunch together. Mariana expresses her admiration, exclaiming how delicious Alicia's mixed sandwich looks. A slightly flustered Alicia offers her one. Watching them from a short distance, Ragna brave smiles, remarking to himself that harmony among friends is a beautiful thing. His pleasant expression, however, quickly vanishes, replaced by a deep-seated concern as he wonders how events could have possibly ended up like this. Meanwhile, Mariana notices his absence. She wonders aloud where Ragna went, noting that he disappeared right after break time started, even though he always takes his classes so seriously. He had sequestered himself to think. He considers that now that he is seen with Alicia, the criticism against her, someone abandoned in the wasteland, will probably increase. He continues this line of thought as he walks away, observing the two girls. For the protagonist and the villainous noblewoman to get along. What kind of fate is this? He resigns himself to his place, thinking that he is fine with being a side character. Alicia, too, is lost in thought, contrasting the current peace with the original game world. In that timeline, Mariana, as a commoner, was spending her school life peacefully. Alicia, however, had lost their duel and was driven into the frontier territory. In that case, Ragna concludes, looking at a shattered sword on the ground, it is clear. In this world, Mariana is not the one he must fight. He continued to ponder the events of the original story, picturing Alicia kneeling in defeat after a duel. The question remained, who was the one to best her? His memory supplied a crucial detail. The prince had instigated that duel. This knowledge piqued his curiosity about how events were unfolding in this new timeline. He moved through the academy grounds, his search guided by the sound of adoring students. Peeking around a corner, he heard them calling out a name, Edward, and confirmed he had found his target. A young man, Edward Grand Etherdam, gracefully turned down an invitation for lunch, explaining he already had plans. Ragna watched from a distance, recognizing Alicia's former fiancé and recalling that in the game, pursuing the prince was considered the classic route. He remembered how, in the game's design, Edward was essentially a starting challenge, a tutorial stage prince meant to be an easy first opponent. As his thought crossed his mind, Edward's gaze settled on someone, and he spoke. So, we meet again? Ragna considered the original plot. If things were following that script, this would be the moment for the heroine to be building her relationship with the protagonist. His train of thought was interrupted as Edward called out an apology for keeping someone waiting. To his utter shock, the person waiting was Alicia. She assured the prince that she had only just arrived. Then, she suggested that instead of the formal, Your Highness, she should call him Edward, a proposal he seemed to truly appreciate. He smiled, reminding her that she had already called him by his name once before, back when they first met in the castle town before the school term began. She explained, a little flustered, that at the time she had been unaware of his royal status. Despite her initial hesitation, she now considered their reunion at the academy to be fate. Leaning closer, he clarified his desire. It was precisely because it was her that he wanted to be called by his name, not his title. Overwhelmed by his sincerity, Alicia could only stammer the first letter of his name. She clasped her hands together, a deep blush spreading across her face as she murmurs the prince's name, Edward. The sight is so earnest that Ragna, observing from a distance, finds it deeply embarrassing. His discomfort shifts to confusion as he racks his brain. He is certain there was no character named Patricia in the game. He can only conclude that this person has somehow replaced the original heroine, Mariana. As he continues to watch them on the bench, with Edward showing a surprising gentleness, Ragna's bewilderment deepens. He finds himself questioning who this person, this version of Alicia, truly is. Suddenly, four other young noblemen appear, surrounding the pair. They playfully tell Edward they won't let him get ahead, reminding him that they're also there. One declares that this Patricia is a bad person for unbelievably capturing all of their attention. The realization strikes Ragna with shocking clarity. His eyes widen as he understands. Those men are all the romanceable targets from the game. Somehow, Alicia has managed to create a reverse harem, gathering all the main love interests around her. Beaming, she happily invites every one of them to have lunch together. She holds up a large basket, assuring them she's fine and has made extra portions, as she usually does. It's a classic move, straight out of a textbook, on creating a reverse harem. Ragna analyzes the scene with growing alarm. Alicia is completely usurping the protagonist's position, having triggered affection flags for all the men, a feat considered impossible on a first playthrough. He realizes the situation is deeply problematic, as these men are all heirs to powerful families and should already have fiancés. He decides then and there to stay away from this complicated group. With such a tangled web of relationships, he wouldn't be surprised if someone met a mysterious end after graduation. He wants no part of it. However, a final thought solidifies in his mind. Just as he suspected, there is one person in this altered scenario who needs to be watched carefully. His thoughts turn to another key figure, Jalasis Grand Ignite, the second son of the Ignite ducal family. Ragna watched him from afar, noting his seemingly gentle demeanor. Jalasis explained to his companions that he preferred eating with them rather than in the cafeteria, claiming it was tastier. Ragna, however, remained wary, questioning the sincerity of this display. He recalled a recent scene where Jalasis sat on a bench with Alicia and Prince Edward. Jalasis had casually tried to probe the mysterious girl for information, asking if she knew anything about the magician causing a stir in the Brave territory, a clear reference to Ragna himself. This memory solidified his assessment. Ragna knew from the game that Jalasis was a troublesome character and that approaching him carelessly would be a mistake. He remembered the boy's history, born to a concubine and raised harshly as insurance for the main heir. His path in the story was a dark and difficult one, focused on rescuing him from his toxic family situation. Because of this past, he was a dangerous individual whose entire personality could shift depending on the choices made around him, transforming from a gentle friend to a menacing threat in an instant. Ragna found it strange that despite the Ignite family actively targeting him, he and Jalasis had not yet crossed paths. Seeing him now, getting along with Alicia, Ragna decided it was best to leave them alone for the moment. He moved away, crouching on a rooftop to think. His primary goal remained unchanged, to ensure Alicia could live a peaceful life and to prevent the potential ruin that awaited her. As he focused on this mission, a voice from behind suddenly spoke, remarking that peeking was not an admirable quality. The voice belonged to the school principal, Vorzia Grand Cascade. He stood on the roof's edge, surrounded by a swirling aura of power, looking down at Ragna. Vorzia warned him that it was dangerous to be up on the roof, a comment Ragna found deeply ironic. The principal then cut to the chase, demanding to know what Ragna was doing there. This unexpected confrontation presented an opportunity. Ragna realized it was the perfect timing to ask something he needed to know. His thoughts shifted to the subject of his concern. He looked toward a girl with unnaturally blonde hair, the dark roots of her natural color showing. She was surrounded by the same group of young noblemen, an impossible reverse harem. Ragna's suspicion solidified. There was no doubt that this girl was the one he needed to investigate. He stood before the school principal, his expression resolute as he revealed a fundamental truth. The girl at the center of this distorted fate, he explained, was a reincarnator just like him. With this revelation made, he made a direct request, asking the principal to tell him everything about the student named Patricia. The inquiry into the student known as Patricia continues. Ragna Brave is determined to uncover everything about her, her origins, her past, and her magical abilities. Principal Vorzia Grand Cascade observes, contemplating the name Patricia Kindred, as the central question hangs in the air. Can the truth about the second reincarnated person be brought to light? At an admissions desk, Ragna directly confronts Alicia, questioning why he finds her so suspicious. While filling out her paperwork, she calmly denies any secret manipulations, stating plainly that she was granted admission after passing the entrance examination like any other student. His suspicions, however, remain. Ragna internally recounts how the game's protagonist was deliberately separated from her companions during a recent event. He theorizes that if this was Patricia's scheme, there must have been a noble who helped switch the carriages. His line of thought quickly identifies the most probable culprit behind such a conspiracy, the Ignite family. The scene shifts to his conversation with Principal Vorzia, who acknowledges Ragna's caution. The principal argues, however, that as long as their true objective is unknown, it is better to have them enrolled and under observation rather than leaving them unchecked. Ragna sighs, conceding the point. He wistfully remarks that it would be nice to live peacefully, a sentiment that seems to resonate with the older man. His comment prompts Vorzia to offer some advice. The principal reminds Ragna that he is a student at the academy and has every right to enjoy his youth. He then asks why Ragna insists on living such a constrained and difficult life. In response, Ragna turns to him with a bright, almost cheerful smile. He asks the principal if he has forgotten the pride of the Brave family. The smile vanishes as he turns away, his hand clenching into a tight fist. Vorzia watches him, reflecting that the blood of the Brave family is known to resist adversity until the very last breath. He had thought Ragna was desperately clinging to this ideal, but now, seeing this apparent resignation, he questions if the young man's resolve is truly so weak. Before Vorzia can finish his thought, Ragna spins around and delivers a powerful punch directly to the principal's face. His fist connected with a thunderous crack, the force of the blow sending shockwaves through the air and shattering the stone wall behind the principal. The sound of the impact reverberated through the academy grounds, causing students nearby to cry out in alarm. They felt the ground tremble, wondering about the source of the sudden disturbance. Back at the source of the commotion, he stood with his head lowered, his fist still extended. Despite the immense force, Principal Vorzia remained standing, seemingly unfazed by the direct hit. The principal's expression was one of cold composure. Ragna's fist had been stopped just shy of his face, held in place by an unseen force, leaving Vorzia entirely untouched. Undeterred, he glared at the principal, his voice laced with menace. He declared that this was the situation he wanted and that he was acting accordingly. He warned Vorzia that he would not be forgiven if any harm came to Alicia, regardless of whether the academy was the principal's private domain. Vorzia listened to the threat with a steely gaze before calmly accepting the challenge. Fine, he stated. If that was Ragna's wish, then he would have to prove his conviction. The principal then shifted the topic, asking about Mariana Ocean. Ragna, caught off guard, questioned the relevance of fate and what he perceived as a terrible scenario. Vorzia elaborated on his point, explaining that Mariana is a child with a strong fate. However, he warned that her destiny was currently being distorted on a massive scale, spiraling into madness. This distortion, he continued, would eventually involve everyone at the academy who also possessed a strong fate. The principal predicted that this would likely divide the entire country between light and darkness. He then presented Ragna with a clear directive. At this moment, Mariana has lost her guardian and possesses no strength to resist her fate. Ragna's task was to protect her. In a small world, separate from the main stage of events, a rugged mountain range stands under a clear sky. Within a cavernous passage, Mariana Ocean clutches her fists, admitting to herself that she is getting nervous. As she asks if this is her first time in a dungeon, Ragna stands beside her, confirming it is. His own thoughts, however, are on his mission to protect her, and he silently wonders just how much Principal Vorzia truly knows. He watches as Mariana admits her fear. They have arrived at the practical training dungeon, a place for students to apply their magic. Those safety measures are in place. A moment of carelessness could easily lead to injury, as evidenced by other students already battling a winged beast within. Nearby, another conversation takes place. Alicia, using the name Patricia, tells Prince Edward she feels weak. He reassures her, promising that he will protect her. Watching them embrace, Ragna's expression darkens. He realizes with some bitterness that for many here, the dungeon is merely an opportunity to grow closer to their romantic interests. Despite this, his focus remains sharp. He knows there is an important event hidden deep within the dungeon, centered around a sacred relic. He wonders what the others plan to do about the fake. His thoughts are interrupted when Mariana excitedly calls out to Alicia, who has just arrived. Ragna is momentarily flustered, thinking Alicia looks like a battle-hardened adventurer and feeling happy to be in a dungeon with her again. Alicia apologizes for the wait and announces they should get going, but her arrival has drawn the attention of another student. A young woman with her blonde hair in large drill smirks, commenting on the damaged girl, Mariana. She dismisses her as a persistent commoner trying to cling to the academy by cozying up to the nobility. Her companion quickly agrees, addressing her as Lady Ekaterina. The insult catches Ragna's attention. A look of shocked recognition crosses his face as he identifies the girl and her drill-haired companion as individuals who used to be close to Alicia. He listens as Ekaterina's voice drips with contempt, remarking on the number of lowlifes present. She scoffs at the idea of filthy monkeys from the slums and even peasants pretending they belong. As Ekaterina strides past, she declares that this is an academy for refined nobles, leaving Mariana looking utterly shocked by the verbal assault. She then turns her attention to Alicia, offering with a dark smile to drive out all the filthy beings for her. The threat makes Mariana flinch. Before the situation can escalate, Ragna steps forward, calling out to interrupt them. His intervention is preempted by the arrival of another student, whose sudden, composed appearance captures the attention of both Ragna and has startled Mariana. The newcomer calmly greets Ekaterina by name. This infuriates Ekaterina, who demands to know how the other girl dares to act so smugly, questioning who let commoners into the academy and calling her a damaged failure. Unfazed, the student positions herself before Mariana. She tells Ekaterina to direct any hatred toward her, admitting she's done enough to deserve it, but insists Mariana has nothing to do with their conflict. She then issues a direct challenge, inviting Ekaterina to request a duel or anything else she desires. She continues, suggesting Ekaterina could fight the sage's disciples, or even herself. Leaning closer to Mariana, she whispers a quiet assessment. She doesn't think Mariana could win. Ekaterina's rage boils over. She accuses the defender of getting cocky just because she built a monkey mountain and snarls that it suits her to spend her whole life drinking coffee. The strange insult leaves Mariana aghast. In response, the student simply closes her eyes and smiles. She agrees that she will drink it, stating plainly that it's because she likes coffee. She watched as her defeated opponent, Ekaterina, turned away in disgust. With a click of her tongue, Ekaterina declared the situation a buzzkill and ordered her group to leave, complaining about the unbearable smell of beans. From a distance, Ragna Brave observed the aftermath. A look of realization dawned on him as he watched Mariana and Alicia standing together. He approached, and Alicia turned to him, her expression contrite. She acknowledged his strength and apologized, saying it was her fault for getting caught up with a strange person. He disagreed, insisting that she looked cool. With a faint blush, he confessed that this was precisely why he felt so strongly and had come to like her. A moment later, Mariana Ocean chimed in, reminding them that Ekaterina had also insulted Alicia by calling her damaged and had made fun of coffee. With a bright smile, Ragna casually asked if he should kill them for insulting both of them. She paused, her hand to her chin as she thoughtfully considered his startling proposal. Her foot tapped against the rocky ground. Having moved on from the confrontation, the trio ventured into a cavernous dungeon lined with jagged, glowing crystals. Ragna took in the sight, confirming their location. Their journey through the dungeon was fraught with danger. As Mariana recounted, they were met with a relentless barrage of traps and monsters, one after another. Suddenly, a projectile shot out from the darkness. Alicia's eyes widened in alarm as she saw an arrow speeding directly toward Ragna, and she cried out his name in warning. He remained perfectly calm, catching the arrow's tip between his fingers just millimeters from his neck. He assured them he was okay, explaining that a protective barrier is always created just around his body. He explains that his magic is not infallible. If his magical power were to run out, the barrier could be penetrated. Alicia, looking on, remarks that it is an extraordinary skill. He continues, revealing that the barrier originated long ago when he was close to death. It was born from the simple idea that if he covered his entire body, he would no longer be afraid. A memory surfaces of him as a child, huddled inside a protective sphere of light while monstrous beasts and birds loomed over him in a dark forest. He adds that he has been putting it into practice ever since, and now the barrier activates automatically, without him even having to think about it. The memory shifts to him walking calmly through a corridor as a volley of arrows flies toward him, only to be stopped inches from his body by the invisible shield. His explanation concludes. Mariana, looking concerned, asks if the Brave territory is a really scary place. Alicia smiles warmly and reassures her that it is not, calling it a really nice place. Seeing an opportunity, Alicia suggests that she and Mariana join Ragna at his home during the summer break for some training in the mountains. Mariana immediately accepts with enthusiasm, exclaiming that she would love to go. She grandly dubs the plan the Brave-style boot camp, declaring that with this training, everyone will become a user of chantless magic. An image of the three as energetic silhouettes flashes through their minds. Mariana is ecstatic, thrilled that Ragna will be training her. Alicia, looking slightly nervous, tells her to do her best, but pleads with her not to get killed. Ragna clenches a fist, accepting the responsibility. As this unfolds, Mariana adjusts her glasses, finding the whole situation rather mysterious. As they continue deeper into the dungeon, Mariana's curiosity takes over. She turns to the others and asks why the monsters they defeat vanish into mist instead of leaving corpses behind. She theorizes that the dungeon was created by ancient sages, noting how intriguing all the mysteries are. Believing the soil from the walls might hold a clue, she prepares to take a sample with a small tool. Just as she reaches out, Alicia cries out for her to wait. Before she can react, a massive, glowing magic circle erupts from the floor beneath her. The sudden force launches her into the air, her tools scattering as she is caught within the luminous trap. Ragna and Alicia can only watch in shock as he shouts her name, while Alicia wonders in horror if Mariana has activated something terrible. They land with a thud in a cavernous, ancient hall. Ragna, holding both Mariana and the other student, surveys the grim surroundings, a place of crumbling pillars and scattered bones. Mariana, adjusting her glasses, voices the question on all their minds. Where have they been transported? Setting the two women gently on their feet, he continues to scan the area. A sense of familiarity washes over him as he recognizes the architecture, concluding that they have likely been sent to the dungeon's lowest level. The revelation leaves his companion stunned. He calmly assesses their predicament, deducing they've triggered a teleportation trap, a classic move befitting a story's protagonist. Beside him, the other student can only marvel at the sheer, imposing wall of the chamber. Her attention then shifts to Mariana, who is inexplicably holding a pickaxe. She swiftly confiscates it, chiding Mariana that personal safety comes first. With a stern look, she reminds the distraught girl that she can't drink coffee if she's dead. She then produces a coffee pot and begins to pour a cup, offering it to the bewildered Mariana with the grim suggestion that it might be her last. Mariana can only stare, questioning where the coffee set came from and why she was carrying it in the first place. Accepting the cup, Mariana explains the common wisdom that one should always bring their own provisions into a dungeon, a point the other student readily confirms. Observing their impromptu break, Ragna decides to join them, asking for a cup as well. He accepts the drink, his expression turning somber as he considers their dire circumstances. He reflects that reaching the bottom of a dungeon is typically a death sentence. Help is unreachable, and the local monsters are not a source of sustenance. The student defender's voice cuts through his thoughts, calling his name. He turns his gaze towards her, a calm and reassuring smile spreading across his face as he begins to offer a counterpoint. She continues, her voice laced with concern, stating that this place is unknown to them from their studies and that they are completely cut off from aid. Acknowledging the extreme danger they are in, she questions his composure, asking if he possesses some knowledge they don't. He attempts to calm his companion, assuring Alicia that they will be fine. He insists there is something they can do once they have a moment to catch their breath. His gaze drifts as he thinks back to the magic circle that transported them. The three students now stand within a vast, ancient cavern, dwarfed by crumbling pillars. The student defender, however, remains suspicious. She recalls that in the game story, Alicia is the villainess, and this kind of trap is exactly something she would orchestrate. The question of who is truly responsible lingers in her mind. Putting her thoughts aside, she concludes that they have no choice but to move forward. She reminds the others that there is also a pendant deeper inside the dungeon that is necessary for their strategy. The item she speaks of is the sacred relic, an ornate and powerful artifact. It lies dormant in the dungeon's deepest chamber and is said to be a crucial item for saving the country near the end of the story. Mariana's expression becomes resolute, understanding the relic's connection to the saint's awakening. Ragna stands beside her, agreeing that they must collect it. The student defender then lays out the next step of the plan. They must defeat the golem guarding the door ahead, after which they should find a teleportation magic circle that leads to the exit. Her companions turn to Ragna, asking if this is truly the case. He confirms that according to the records, defeating the guardian of the deepest level allows one to return. Privately, however, he knows there is more to it, information he feels he cannot yet share. Following his words, the group's attention is captured by a massive, intricately designed set of doors embedded in the cavern wall. The student defender excitedly suggests that this might be the exit. Mariana, however, points out a worrying fact. There is no golem guarding the door. Ragna's expression becomes serious as he takes in this unexpected situation. He and his companions had expected an empty chamber, but instead, they were confronted by a monstrous entity. Before them, Alicia stood her ground against a massive, dripping slime creature with a single, unblinking eye. The creature shifted its form, suddenly appearing behind Mariana. Seeing the immediate danger, he cried out her name in alarm. He lunged forward, scooping Mariana into his arms and leaping away just as a torrent of fire erupted from the ground where she had been standing. As they landed, they saw a shadowy figure cackling within the flames. From the inferno, a new, more terrifying figure emerged. A hulking, muscular demon wreathed in fire. It towered over them, its presence radiating immense power. Mariana, still shaken, remarked on the incredible power emanating from the demon, comparing it to the sun. He could only agree, his expression grim as he felt the intense heat. He ordered both of them to step back, expressing his reluctance to get too close. He recognized this entity. It was a demon, the very being to whom Alicia had entrusted her soul near the end of the original story. His attention then snapped to Alicia, who stood frozen, a dagger in her hand. Her eyes were wide with shock, her mind thrown back to a painful memory. The moment a match was decided, and she was declared the winner under the name Patricia. The memory sharpened, showing her kneeling in defeat after challenging someone, being berated for losing to a mere commoner and shaming her family. The voice called her pathetic. The world around her blurred with distress until a gentle voice called her name. Snapping her out of the traumatic recollection, he gripped her face firmly, forcing her to meet his gaze. He spoke her name, reassuring her that everything was all right. Her eyes, wide and shimmering, focused on him. A deep blush spread across her face as she stammered, momentarily lost for words in the face of his sudden, intense concern. She watched him rush past, calling out to ask what he planned to do. Ragna paused, turning to Alicia, the heroine, and the student defender, confirming they could all use Aquaveil and instructing them to stay right where they were. He glanced back over his shoulder with a determined look, declaring his intent to kill the bastard. With that, he charged forward, ignoring the slime monster's guttural laugh. He focused solely on the flame demon, vowing that it would take responsibility for triggering his fiancée's trauma. He unleashed a massive, swirling torrent of water that slammed into the fiery creature. As the vortex of water engulfed the demon, Ragna observed that its body seemed to shrink under the magical assault. The watery vortex sharpened into a slicing arc of immense pressure. Leaping through the air, he guided the powerful current with deadly precision. His attack struck true, cleaving the demon's head from its shoulders. From their vantage point, the heroine cheered that he had done it, but Alicia shouted a frantic warning that the danger was now coming from behind. The severed head and body parts tumbled to the ground, dissolving into nothing upon impact. The demon itself seemed momentarily confused, muttering to itself and wondering what had fallen. And with an audible snap, the head flew back onto its neck, reattaching itself perfectly. Facing the fully restored demon, Ragna calmly acknowledged that an attack of that magnitude was apparently not enough to kill it. The creature itself seemed to ponder why such a blow had failed. He coolly stated that it was no problem, challenging the demon to try and hit him. Unfazed, Ragna launched himself forward once more, closing the distance to re-engage his seemingly immortal foe. He looks down at the regenerating demon, unimpressed. He tells the creature not to think it can outmaneuver him with such a sloppy defense, declaring its previous attack pathetic and unworthy of even the lowest-ranked brave. The demon, still on the ground, wonders to itself if it was careless. In response to the insult, the demon snarls that he is one to talk. It lunges forward, its clawed hand crackling with dark energy. The creature's attack connects, engulfing him completely in a violent torrent of flames. As the inferno rages, the demon seems confused by the lack of a pained reaction. It roars for its target to burn, but inside the blaze, Ragna stands impassive and unharmed. He remains completely unfazed, remarking that a fire dragon's breath is far hotter than this. The demon cries out, stunned by his resilience. His attention shifts from the physical battle to a deeper mystery. He seems to peer into the very essence of the demon, asking aloud who is inside and requesting that they reveal themselves. A fundamental truth about demons surfaces in his mind. They do not originally possess physical forms. This means there must be a human inside the creature, one who made a deal with the demon to fulfill their own desires. With this understanding, he faces the hissing demon once more. Deciding to confirm his theory, he reaches out a hand, intending to identify the source of the magic power by touching it. The moment his fingers make contact, the demon's body begins to violently convulse and erupt. It lets out a final, agonized scream as Ragnar realizes with shock that it is self-destructing. The violent reaction is contained within the slime monster, which struggles to hold the destructive energy. Nearby, Mariana cries out that she can't maintain her hold any longer, just as the entire mass erupts in a massive explosion. As the explosion ripped through the cavern, Ragnar threw himself in front of Mariana and the other student, absorbing the full force of the fiery blast with his body. The ground beneath them cracks and shatters from the impact. He kneels amidst the rubble, his expression hardening with frustration as he wonders who is truly controlling the demon. Alicia rushes to his side, asking with concern if he is all right. The other student points out that he is burned, but he dismisses it as just a scratch. Alicia looks at him, reminding him that he had promised to protect her, no matter what. He looks back at her, relieved to see that she has calmed down. With a slight blush, Alicia quietly thanks him. Her moment of gratitude is interrupted as Ragnar's attention is drawn elsewhere, his expression turning serious once more. Alicia, noticing the change, asks him what is wrong. He explains that during the fight, he spotted a teleportation magic circle. He believes it will allow them to return to the surface, much to the surprise of Mariana and the other student. He leads them to the location, revealing the glowing magic circle etched into the stone floor. He urges them to step onto it, concealing a jeweled artifact behind his back. The moment they step onto the circle, a brilliant light envelopes the three of them, activating the teleportation magic. Within the disorienting flash of light, his focus remains razor-sharp. He realizes he has now grasped the unique sensation of the enemy's magic power. The light of the teleportation fades, leaving the cavern empty. The dungeon practice has concluded in chaos, but Ragnar's new objective is clear: find the main body of his enemy and kill them. Within a grand, now filthy room, Alicia Oldwood, known as Patricia, kneels and coughs. The aftermath of the dungeon training chaos surrounds her, a mess she apparently orchestrated from behind the scenes. A young woman with long, light hair appears in the doorway, her expression one of pure disdain. She calls Alicia pathetic. Recognizing her superior, Alicia utters the name Jalasis, prompting the woman to coldly ask if she succeeded in recovering the sacred artifact. In response to the unspoken failure, Jalasis strikes Alicia hard across the face. Stunned, Alicia can only offer a weak apology, admitting that she couldn't complete the task. Her assault continues as she kicks the fallen Alicia, her voice laced with fury. She screams in disbelief that Alicia could fail, especially while possessed by a demon. All Alicia can do is repeat her apologies from the floor. Gasping, Alicia explains that she was interrupted. A vivid memory flashes through her mind of Ragnar Brave, charging forward to intervene. She reveals his name to her furious master. Jalasis scoffs at the name, dismissing Ragnar as nothing more than an insignificant noble from the frontier, a minor character who should have naturally disappeared as the story progressed. She clutches her head, enraged that her entire plan to turn Alicia into the story's villainess has collapsed. It is all his fault. In her mind, she sees Ragnar standing beside the heroine, Mariana. Her frustration deepens as she realizes the path involving Edward is no longer viable, and her former followers are now useless, despite her blackmailing their families. As Jalasis seethes, Alicia notices her hand is bleeding and suggests they treat the wound. Jalasis sharply silences her. With a cold, unreadable expression, she tells Alicia to be quiet and then commands her to take off her clothes. Her tone softens almost imperceptibly as she asks where Alicia was injured. Alicia kneels before her, her back exposed to reveal a canvas of old scars and fresh wounds. Her hand glowed with a soft, restorative light, mending the wounds across the young man's chest. His injuries healed, he looked down a ring on his finger and presented it to her, simply stating here. As she worked, her thoughts turned to his opponent. She realized that the man was a reincarnator, the same as her, and she found it unbelievable that he could have taken her subordinate's head off in a single blow. She continued to ponder the situation, musing that if his circumstances were similar to her own, then perhaps his actions couldn't be helped. But what would come next? Since he had used self-destruction, his entire body was gone. Her attention returned to the young man before her. She placed a hand gently on his head, acknowledging that it was a flashy defeat, but praising him nonetheless, telling him he did a great job. He looked up at her, his expression filled with gratitude as he stammered a thank you. Overcome with emotion, he stepped forward and embraced her tightly, whispering her name, Jalasis. She held him close, calling him a crybaby and a winner. She then referred to him as Patricia, her adorable little brother, revealing that he was a rare being who, just like her, had carried a demon since the day he was born. Pulling back slightly, she looked at him with a gentle expression. She told him that, for the moment, it was okay for her to simply be his big sister. He leaned his head against her once more, his voice heavy with the truth of his failure. He confessed that the man he fought was truly strong, and that he couldn't possibly defeat him. As he called out her name again, her expression hardened. She thought to herself that he was still the same crybaby he had always been. The moment of comfort ended abruptly. Now kneeling before her in the ornate room, the young man looked up as she tilted his chin with her fingers. Her tone was no longer sisterly, but commanding as she asked, "What is it that you want?" Her question left him stammering, his eyes wide as he tried to grasp what it was he truly wanted. He finally found his voice, his hands flying to his head in anguish. He confessed his singular, all-consuming desire, Alicia. He wanted her for himself. He admitted, even if it meant destroying her. The thought twisted into a dark fantasy. If he chained her up, they could be together forever. She listened to his desperate confession and calmly pointed out the flaw in his logic. To take Alicia, she explained, he would first have to kill the one she currently belongs to. Her brother could only stammer in response, the reality of the task dawning on him. Seeing his hesitation, she moved closer, cupping his face gently. She told him to believe in her, reminding him that he was special. If he could just find the will to keep going, she implied, success was within reach. With her words of encouragement still hanging in the air, she leaned in and pressed her lips against his. It was not a simple kiss. Her mouth opened slightly, a hint of a bite, as if she were tasting his very essence. He pulled back, a surge of energy coursing through him. A powerful magical aura erupted from his body as he thanked her, vowing to do his best and to win without fail the next time. Jalasis watched him, silently observing the sudden, dramatic increase in his power. As she observed her brother's renewed determination, a young man with dark hair and pierced ears approached her. He addressed her by name, suggesting that, from his perspective, she had already won. She turned to her confidant with a playful wink, cheekily explaining her victory. After all, her brother had just been embraced and even kissed by a cute girl. Her associate stared back, his expression one of utter shock. Leaving him to process her words, she began walking toward the Grand Academy building, her brother and associate in tow. She remarked dismissively that the simple-minded students there live for such trivial things, advising him to try going back to see for himself. Her attention shifted from her companion to the academy grounds below, her eyes fixing on a single student. Brave. The name registered in her mind as she observed him from the window. Turning to face the window fully, she gripped the frame, her knuckles whitening. She wondered aloud in her thoughts what his goal could possibly be, appearing in this scenario, on this stage. Though she didn't understand his reasons for being there, she made a cold, internal vow. If he got in her way, she would show no mercy. Her expression hardened with grim resolve. She would defy this damn world. She would carve her own will into fate, into the very fabric of the world itself. A single path lay before her, a choice born of a deep-seated curse and unwavering determination. Destruction, that was the answer she chose. During a private conversation among young women, Alicia Oldwood is caught off guard, a blush spreading across her face as she is asked for the details of a recent date. Her friend, Jalasis, presses for information, asking what they were up to that night and confirming that they walked through the city together. Alicia stammers, trying to downplay the event. Nearby, Ragnar Brave realizes they are discussing the date and that he has missed his chance to join in. He overhears Alicia explaining how they smelled grilled skewers and decided to try street food, a first for both of them. Jalasis expresses her surprise that it was a new experience for Alicia, and especially for Ragnar. She continues her thought, musing that Ragnar seems a little sheltered, or perhaps just inexperienced with the world, given that until recently, he couldn't even ride a train. He overhears this assessment from his hiding spot and smiles faintly, realizing she has him figured out. He concludes that he must seem hopeless with anything outside of combat. His self-assessment is immediately contrasted by Alicia's internal thought. Looking at him, she finds him quite cute. Ragnar, in turn, appears shocked and flustered by her reaction. Her friend continues the interrogation, asking if Alicia was the one doing the escorting, which is unusual. Alicia confirms that she took the initiative, even holding his hand to show him around the capital. This revelation shocks Jalasis. She recalls that Ragnar's idea of a perfect date plan was to be decided by rolling dice, a plan so chaotic it could have turned the royal capital into a sea of fire. She wonders what kind of person he truly is. She recalls another memory from their first date, where Ragnar pointed out rocks that had been burned by a dragon's breath, noting it also showed signs of a drunkard's handiwork. After hearing these stories, Jalasis asks Alicia if she doesn't want him to take the lead. With a gentle expression, Alicia simply replies that it's fine as it is. Her conversation with Jalasis is interrupted when Mariana points out that the lunch break is nearly finished, asking if they should head back. As Mariana watches her with a thoughtful expression, Alicia gazes into the distance, her resolve hardening. She declares that her goal is to be Ragna's equal, revealing this as the driving force behind her actions. The memory of their time together surfaces, Ragna, with a faint blush, thanking her for their meal. As she sits on a bench in the garden, an unseen onlooker remarks on her charm, understanding completely why Ragna is so smitten. It all began with a chaotic week of dungeon training, where a small party of students ventured into the mouth of the cavern. Afterward, as if nothing had happened, the students began their next practical training session at a grand, sunlit poolside. Ragna Brave, standing by the water's edge, wondered to himself why there was even a pool at the academy. The reason was simple. This was the world of an Otome game, where a swimsuit episode could emerge out of nowhere. Across the pool, Alicia was flanked by two handsome, shirtless young men. She surfaced, sputtering, and confessed that she was not a very good swimmer and found the water frightening. One of the young men immediately reassured Patricia that he was right there with her, but the other interjected, insisting that he would be the one to help her. Watching this scene unfold from a distance, Ragna grimaced. He recognized it as the kind of reward event that follows a battle, but the sight brought him no happiness. Just then, a voice called out his name. He turned to find Mariana Ocean, now in a swimsuit, asking if he wasn't going for a swim. When he replied that he would later, she seemed to accept his answer. She then brightly suggested they have some tea by the poolside, remarking that it was a perfect day for magic. Her expression shifted to one of confusion as she asked Ragna if he wasn't the one being called from across the way. She mused aloud that the only people who ever called for her were Alicia and Ragna. Her gaze drifted towards a group of gossiping students. They were remarking that Mariana was a commoner who hadn't drawn much hate, likely because she was aware of her social status and acted appropriately. Mariana listened, her cheerful demeanor fading into quiet contemplation. She stands by the pool with Ragna, her hand gently resting on his. Her mind, however, is elsewhere as she wonders aloud where Alicia could be. Her question seems to trigger a memory for Ragna, Alicia's gentle face, blushing slightly as she thanked him, telling him he worried too much. His attention returns to Mariana, who tries to reassure him. She expresses her belief that Alicia will be fine and can overcome any trouble. For the moment, Mariana is content just to be by his side, practicing her water magic with a sigh of satisfaction. Her moment of peace is shattered as a large splash of water erupts from the pool, dousing her completely. She cries out in surprise, demanding to know what is happening. The source is the student with the high ponytail, who is practicing her own powerful magic. She nonchalantly warns Mariana to stay away from the pool for her own safety. As Ragna watches with a scowl, muttering about the wasteland bastard, a blinded Mariana frantically searches for her lost glasses. He is acutely aware of the other students' whispers. They see the scars covering his body and recoil in fear, spreading rumors that he is cursed and warning each other away from him, even as they note his growing closeness to Mariana. The weight of their judgment settles on him. He laments that making friends seems like a hopeless dream, wishing for someone he could truly connect with. Just then, a voice cuts through his solitude. Jalace's Grand Ignite stands beside him, acknowledging his struggle by remarking that it must be tough. He then sits down beside Ragna, his gaze direct and unwavering, creating a moment of quiet intensity between them. The unexpected gesture leaves Ragna utterly stunned, his mind reeling in disbelief. As he struggles to comprehend the situation, Jalacis calmly invites him to sit. The name finally clicks in Ragna's mind. Jalacis, and he stares in shock as a faint shimmer of energy plays around Jalacis' fingertips. He finds himself at a large, modern poolside area, bustling with other students enjoying the water under the sun. As he stands apart from the crowd, Jalacis watches him intently. Internally, Jalacis notes that this is his first conversation with a capture target and finds him difficult to read, admitting to himself that it's no good. The direct attention makes Ragna sweat nervously. He asks Jalacis why he approached him and questions if he shouldn't be joining the others in the pool. Turning his back slightly to look at the water, Jalacis states plainly that he is not good with it. Ragna seems taken aback by the simple admission. Jalacis' focus then shifts, and he remarks that, more importantly, Ragna has an amazing body. Flustered by the compliment, Ragna explains he got his physique from his time in the Freep territory, internally lamenting that he should have worn a shirt. Jalacis then asks about a wound on his back. His thoughts drift to an image of Alicia. He decides that as long as she isn't hiding her own wounds, he is fine with his being visible as well. Now sitting on a bench together, Jalacis expresses his admiration, noting that the Freep territory has been at war with a neighboring country for a long time and that Ragna looks strong. Ragna dismisses the praise, pointing out that Jalacis also possesses a well-trained physique. He smiles faintly, agreeing that they both have their struggles. Jalacis concurs, attributing his own condition to his upbringing and the way he was taught. Despite the apparent bonding moment, Ragna is internally overwhelmed with social anxiety, breaking into a sweat as he thinks to his absent butler, Seabass, about how incredibly awkward the situation is. He was still processing their conversation when Jalacis called out to him. Ragna turned, a bead of sweat on his temple, his expression one of pure confusion as Jalacis simply stared back, his gaze fixed and intense. During a break from his training, a shirtless Ragna Brave is approached by Jalasis Grand Ignite, who asks an unexpectedly personal question, whether he has ever held hands with someone. Ragna can only respond with a confused sound. The abrupt question leaves Ragna flustered. He realizes Jalasis has completely disregarded the flow of their conversation, pushing forward with his own agenda. There is no doubt in his mind what this behavior signifies. His realization solidifies. This is Jalasis's emotional phase, a predictable change that occurs after one has collected 18 flags with him. He frantically wonders why this game-like progression is happening with him, convinced it must be a glitch. He recalls how Jalasis, who had always kept his distance, was supposed to take an unusual interest in the protagonist, Alicia, and constantly ask her questions. The deviation from the expected path is bewildering. Jalasis, however, offers a simple explanation for his line of questioning, stating that he simply became curious about Ragna. The words strike Ragna as a relationship advancement voice line, further cementing his theory about the game mechanics at play. His words do little to calm Ragna's racing mind. He imagines Jalasis getting too close to Alicia and worries that, at this rate, Jalasis might make a sudden, unwanted advance on him. He clenches his fists, his body tensing up. Deciding he has to shut this down, he prepares to deliver what he calls his special move, the Brave-style rejection punch. But before he can throw the punch, Jalasis interrupts with another direct question, his voice cutting through the tension. What do you like about Alicia? The query leaves him momentarily speechless, able to muster only another confused, huh? Jalasis looks down, his expression unreadable, and asks what is wrong, his sentence trailing off with a quiet because. He then looks up, a knowing, unsettling smile spreading across his face as he leans in close. He speaks with chilling certainty. You are originally not supposed to be here yet. He and Ragna stood in tense silence by the indoor pool, their gazes locked. Jalasis wore a calm, almost smug expression, while Ragna's face was a mask of wary apprehension. His unnerving stillness seemed to radiate a palpable pressure. Ragna, sweating slightly, could only wonder at the other's confidence, muttering a quiet, uncertain acknowledgement. He then confirmed Ragna's fears, stating plainly that he knew Ragna was the one who had been the deepest part before, a clear reference to a past, hidden battle. Ragna demanded to know why Jalasis had come for him now, so openly, in broad daylight. Sitting at the pool's edge, Jalasis declared it a declaration of war, vowing that he would not let Ragna have Alicia. His thoughts reeled from the sudden challenge, but they were interrupted by a cheerful voice calling out from the water, addressing someone as Jalasis. A young woman with a bow in her hair swam up to Ragna, mistaking him for the other boy. She mentioned that Jalasis wasn't good with water and offered to practice swimming together. Flustered, Ragna mumbled that he was coming. From across the pool, the real Jalasis observed the interaction. He correctly surmised that Ragna had never kissed anyone, then admitted his own loss from their previous encounter. With this, he declared, their score was now 1 win and 1 loss each. Nearby, a group of other male students finished their swim, deciding to get out and relax in the shade. The casual scene of his peers arguing amongst themselves, however, sent a jolt of distress through Ragna. He clutched his head as he overheard one of them angrily questioning another, asking why he was still trying to get a particular girl. His thoughts spiraled into confusion. He couldn't comprehend why someone from Patricia's harem would be involved in this, or why they were now trying to pursue Alicia. The social rules of this world were utterly baffling to him. He seethes with rage, threatening to bring Onyx the dragon and wipe out the culprits responsible for the conflict. A sharp voice cuts through his fury, telling him to stop. Jalasis stands before him in a dark one-piece swimsuit, her expression stern as she asks what kind of dangerous things he is muttering about. His mind flashes to an image of a monstrous, caged beast, straining against its bars as handlers struggle to contain it, a reflection of his own barely contained rage. She asks if someone told him to restrain himself. He denies it, clarifying that there is simply someone he wants to kill. Her expression softens slightly with concern. She tells him that lately, she has heard about a lot of injuries coming from his class. She warns him that if he continues on such a reckless rampage, his and his allies' position will only worsen. As she speaks, she holds up a thick, buckled collar. He takes the collar without hesitation. Flustered, she stammers that he doesn't really have to put it on, especially with others watching, but he calmly states that he will wear it today. With the collar fastened around his neck, he makes a solemn declaration to Jalasis. Alicia isn't mine. I'm malicious. Jalasis turns away, remarking to an unseen party that this very attitude is what separates Ragna from them. His thoughts are interrupted as Mariana rushes over, frantically asking if anyone has seen her glasses, completely unaware they are perched on her own head. Ragna watches her, a thought trailing off in his mind. Meanwhile, observing from a distance, Jalasis' confidant notes with concern that their opponents have made the first move by retrieving a sacred relic. He questions whether this means their true nature has been discovered. Ragna stands alone, the thick leather collar now fastened around his neck. A faint blush dusts his cheeks as he notices a subtle warmth emanating from it. He touches the collar, his expression turning pensive as he processes the sensation. Elsewhere, as the sun shines on a grand estate, Jalasis' confidant reaffirms his own silent vow. He resolves to protect them both, whether in the shadows or in the light, understanding that he must remain ever vigilant. On a bright day at the academy, Alicia Oldwood shields her eyes from the sun, remarking on the blessing of summer clothes. Mariana Ocean approaches and asks what she is doing. Alicia explains she is looking for Ragna, but he doesn't seem to be around during the lunch break. A faint blush appears on Alicia's face as she quietly admits to herself that she had hoped to have lunch with him. Meanwhile, Ragna sits alone, lost in thought. Nearby, two other students discuss the upcoming summer break, with one sighing that she'd love to go on vacation with a man she likes and perhaps even share a kiss. Overhearing them, Ragna clasps his hands, realizing he is facing a serious situation. His concentration is broken by Mariana, who asks if he was deep in thought. She points out that a dangerously malicious magic is leaking from him and informs him that Alicia had been looking for him. Ragna apologizes, insisting it was nothing important. He explains that he was merely performing some magic detection for Alicia's class, though he internally laments that he has done something terrible. He then turns to Mariana and asks a pointed question. During the summer, isn't it natural for boys and girls to want to get closer, maybe even kiss? The question leaves Mariana utterly flustered. She averts her gaze, blushing deeply. She stammers that he shouldn't ask her such things, insisting that for her, it is still not the time. After composing herself, she correctly guesses his true concern. Clearing her throat, she states that she understands. He is worried that Alicia might be taken by someone else. He leans forward earnestly, questioning who would pursue a woman who is already engaged and living with her fiancé. He wonders aloud if anyone would normally do that, his imagination conjuring the image of a sinister-looking man. He quickly clarifies that it's just a background check, a simple precaution. Unimpressed, Mariana stares at him and declares she is telling Alicia. Ragna is thrown into a panic, pleading for her to wait. He stood silently as Mariana questioned his actions. She pointed out that if he was truly that worried about Alicia, he could simply stay with her all the time, asking why he always disappears so quickly. He explained that it wouldn't feel right to take away her time with others. Furthermore, he worried that if he were always with her, she might face criticism because of him. She seemed taken aback by his reasoning, exclaiming that she wouldn't care about such criticism, and she was certain Alicia wouldn't either. As the realization dawned on her that this was why he'd been avoiding her, Ragna quietly insisted that he, however, did care. His quiet declaration was cut short by a familiar voice. Alicia had approached, calling his name and startling him. She smiled brightly, seemingly unaware of the tense conversation, and enthusiastically invited him to the library after school. She suggested they all work on the summer vacation assignment together. Mariana, observing the situation, commented on how frustrating it was to watch from the outside. Seeing Ragna's hesitation, she offered a solution, stating that she knew a good, quiet place for them to study. Ragna considered his own tendency to worry and try to be considerate. He wondered if Alicia had sensed this, noting that she often looked lonely but never spoke of it. Mariana continued her thought aloud, musing that if caring for one another only resulted in keeping their distance, it seemed more logical to simply stay together all the time. Her directness caused both Alicia and Ragna to squirm, with Alicia muttering that the conversation was giving her heartburn. With the plan made, Mariana waved goodbye, promising to see them after school. Ragna resolved to speak with Alicia and explain the situation properly, privately acknowledging Mariana's assertiveness, a trait befitting a former protagonist. He met Alicia later, apologizing for the wait, though she assured him she had just arrived. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by Mariana, who appeared between them with a startling pop and promptly led them to their seats. She began the study session by addressing Ragna directly, thanking him for his concern, but stating that his feelings were completely obvious. She elaborated, pointing out the discrepancy in his behavior. She noted how he visits Alicia on his days off and even takes her on dates. Yet at school, he remains conspicuously distant. Flustered, Mariana admitted that she had panicked, which is why she intervened so forcefully. Alicia, however, shot her a sharp glance, stating firmly that it was none of her concern and that they would handle things at their own pace. Despite her sharp retort, a blush spread across Alicia's face as she abruptly told Ragna to hurry and sit next to her. Just then, Seabass and a maid arrived carrying a massive stack of homework, with the butler cheerfully announcing their plan to finish it all quickly so Ragna wouldn't have to take it back to his domain. Ragna then turned to Mariana, explaining that they were short-staffed and might need her to lend a hand sometimes. A bit overwhelmed, she hesitantly asked if it was truly all right for her to join them, and he readily confirmed that it was. With the matter settled, the three of them began their work. As they sat around the table with their books open, Alicia enthusiastically suggested they incorporate some magic training into their session as well. Alicia Oldwood asks Ragna Brave what kind of souvenir he is planning to get. Beside a steaming cup of coffee and a bag of beans, he replies that he'll probably get coffee beans. He explains his reasoning. He wants everyone back home to taste how amazing the coffee was when he had it at Mariana's place. Hearing this, Mariana Ocean brightens, enthusiastically offering to provide the beans herself. She declares that she has a huge stock at home and insists that everyone take some. She then admits with some embarrassment that before she even started school, she got carried away, certain she wouldn't pass the entrance exam, and ended up buying a massive quantity of beans. Now, she confesses she can't possibly get through it all just on weekends. Hearing this, Alicia agrees to take her up on the offer. Mariana clasps her hands together in relief, while Ragna quietly affirms his agreement as well. He then turns to Mariana with a request. He asks if she would be willing to show the entire Brave family her techniques for making coffee, so that they can all share in the experience. Mariana smiles warmly, agreeing immediately. Though she humbly claims she isn't skilled enough to teach, she promises to do her best. Ragna considers that not only is her coffee's flavor outstanding, but as Alicia's best friend, she will undoubtedly be welcomed by his household staff. He tells her he is just going to grab some materials and asks if she needs anything. Mariana thanks him, replying that she is fine. He walks through a large library, his hands in his pockets. He stops when he finds the section he was looking for, Sage Studies. As he stands there, a familiar voice drifts from a nearby corridor. He turns to see Alicia laughing as a young man kneels before her, exclaiming that it tickles. The young man, holding her hand, is Castor von Pentagram, son of the nation's prime minister. Ragna watches the scene unfold, recognizing Alicia in her role as Patricia, the fake heroine. Castor looks at her fondly, musing that love is always like this. He watched, stunned, as Castor embraced Alicia, calling her Patricia and his holy mother. Castor pleaded for her to pat him gently, and she obliged, calling him a good boy and praising his admirable work behind scenes. The bizarre display left him reeling. His mind could only process one thought in its disbelief: a mama's boy. It simply couldn't be. This behavior contradicted everything he knew. Castor was supposed to be a clever, responsible man. There was nothing like this in the game. The revelation left him shaken. As he tried to make sense of it, a memory of a different conversation surfaced. Alicia speaking with Prince Edward, asking with concern what had happened to him and if he had moved on. But the present scene was far more intense. Castor's voice cut through the memory as he pleaded, "Patricia, please wait for me." He then laid out his plan, promising that in the next student council election, he would make sure to get in so that he could nominate her. Alicia feigned uncertainty, asking if a commoner like her could really do it. Stroking her hair, Castor reassured her, stating with conviction that he knew her talent better than anyone. His confidence stemmed from their past. A memory revealed their first meeting at a trading company, where he confessed that she had been on his mind ever since and that he never imagined they would meet again at school. This history fueled a rivalry. In another memory, Prince Edward claimed Alicia was destined for him, but Castor countered that he had met her first. It was for this reason, he declared, that he wanted her to choose him. Back in the present, Alicia gave her answer. She leaned in and kissed Castor's cheek, whispering that it was something she hadn't even done with Edward. With a soft but firm expression, she asked if he understood now. Her gesture leaves Castor with a look of profound relief. He closes his eyes and murmurs his thanks, feeling that he will finally be able to sleep soundly. As he savors the moment, Ragna slips away from his hiding spot, the soft click of a door marking his unnoticed departure. He slumps down on a nearby staircase, letting out a heavy sigh. The realization dawns on him that Alicia may have been cultivating her relationship with Castor since childhood. How sly, he thinks, a bead of sweat tracing his temple. His troubled thoughts are interrupted by a calm voice. A young woman with a large bow in her hair appears beside him, remarking on his terrible manners for peeking at someone's kiss. She looks on with a knowing expression, adding that the threads of Alicia's scheme are flawlessly woven. In a vast library, Ragna confronts Alicia, his expression tense. He questions her manners, accusing her of forcing a kiss on him. His voice lowers as he asks if she has abandoned the prince to switch her allegiance to him, addressing her by her full name, Patricia Kindred. She touches a finger to her lip playfully, asking if a kiss is truly so unusual and calling him a virgin boy. As a dark, murderous intent flashes through Ragna's mind, she dismisses his anger, questioning if he really thinks her goal is to build a harem. Turning away with a dramatic sweep of her hair, she declares that she is simply in the process of conquering this world. She coolly warns him not to get in her way. He challenges her statement, demanding to know what she means by conquering. He accuses her of causing the story's narrative to become a mess. With a slight, knowing smile, she turns back and points out that his line is actually her own. She then abruptly presents a large, ornate necklace holding a dark, glittering gemstone. The object flashes with light, and Ragna's eyes widen in shock as he identifies it as a sacred treasure. As they stand opposite one another, she calmly explains that she received the treasure as a reward for the trouble he caused her. He presses her, asking what she intends to do. She deflects, claiming to be just a weak commoner. Changing the subject, she looks him in the eye and asks if people often tell him he has a bad personality. Without waiting for a reply, she turns and walks away down the long, book-lined hall. She casually remarks that she gets told that often, leaving Ragna to watch her departure in silence. Later, Ragna and Alicia are seated at a table with two others. A young woman with glasses comments that Ragna was late. A young man with an undercut smirks, teasing that it's quite hot for a couple to be kissing in front of the bookshelves. The remark makes Alicia blush furiously. The woman with glasses then turns directly to Alicia, asking her point blank if she has ever kissed anyone before. Alicia is stunned into silence, her face flushed red as Ragna looks on from behind. She recalls a memory of her engagement to Edward, thinking that a kiss or two would have been perfectly normal for them. Her train of thought is broken when Ragna suddenly stumbles, clutching his chest in pain. The girl with glasses rushes to his side, asking if he's all right. He reassures her, explaining it's just a lingering ache from his battle with the Black Dragon and not a fatal injury. He remains on one knee, internally processing that Alicia likely has no experience with something like a kiss. The thought strikes him that she is no longer the same person he once knew. She has changed in a significant way. Alicia, noticing his strange expression, asks what he's imagining, though she has no idea. He slowly rises to his feet as Alicia declares that she hasn't done anything of the sort. Looking down with a conflicted expression, Ragna quietly asks, "So, not yet?" Their tense exchange is interrupted by the arrival of Jealousy. The girl with glasses, Mariana, becomes flustered. Jealousy greets Alicia coolly, remarking that they haven't seen each other since their time at the pool. She asks what brings them to this place. Ragna, standing beside her, explains that they were just delivering some printouts. Taking in the scene, Jealousy suggests joining their study session. Alicia immediately objects, pointing out that it's her seat. She adds that it's a bad idea because the young girl beside her is struggling to concentrate on her work. She bluntly tells Jealousy to go home. With a smirk, Jealousy calls her harsh, then holds out a folded paper. She states she will just give her this, then firmly places it in Alicia's hand. But instead of leaving, Jealousy swiftly grabs Alicia's hand and brings it to her lips, kissing the back of it. The unexpected gesture leaves both Alicia and Ragna utterly stunned and speechless. Her shocked reaction prompts Jealousy to ask if this is truly her first time experiencing such a thing. Ragna, his expression hardening, steps forward and demands to know if Jealousy is picking a fight with him, Alicia's fiancé. Unfazed, Jealousy retorts by asking if he means a fight like the one in the library. She internally notes that with people watching, it's fine, and that she finds his shamelessness amusing. The escalating tension is broken when Alicia, overwhelmed, suddenly lunges forward and clings tightly to Ragna's back, crying out his name. She tries to calm him, explaining that kissing a hand is merely a form of greeting among nobles and that he shouldn't worry. Flustered by her closeness, Ragna's anger dissipates, and he asks if she's settled down now, calling her a good girl. Watching them, Jealousy scoffs, calling Ragna a brute before turning to leave. As she walks away, Jealousy decides she'll head back. Her thoughts drift to Clive, who suggested they both enjoy their summer vacation, promising it would be fun. The image of a train crossing a bridge over a lush valley fills her mind, a symbol of the journey to come. From the train car, Mariana gazes out at the passing landscape in awe, saluting the view. She exclaims that it's a magnificent sight and her first time ever leaving the capital by train, filled with a premonition of adventure. Seated at a table with Ragna, Alicia remarks that she had assumed they would be traveling by horse. Mariana clarifies that while they do use the train at times, their destination is fixed and they cannot simply disembark wherever they please. Ragna explains that he is the only one who needs to prepare supplies. Alicia smiles warmly, expressing her excitement about meeting the residents of the mansion they are heading to. Nearby, a small, winged creature expresses surprise that they are leaving the territory so soon after arriving, having expected them to stay longer. He turns his gaze to the window, watching the scenery roll by. A pensive look crosses his face as he reflects, surprised to find himself feeling a sense of longing for his hometown. After a moment, he sets his coffee cup down and announces that he is going to the restroom. Alicia notes that he is drinking too much coffee, while Mariana simply tells him to hurry back. The heavy iron wheels of the train clatter rhythmically along the tracks, carrying the passengers steadily onward. He walks through the narrow corridor between train cars, his expression calm and unreadable. As he proceeds, his path is suddenly blocked by three menacing men. The heavy-set man from before stands among them, and they greet him with a mocking, "Welcome, Lord." They quickly surround him. One of the men remarks that thanks to Ragna, they were able to board the train without being noticed, seeming to believe he is merely a close companion to his fiancée. The heavy-set man bursts into a derisive laugh, questioning if Ragna is part of the Ignite family or perhaps an agent from an enemy nation's intelligence service. Dismissing him as just a kid, he barks a sharp order to his men. Don't underestimate him. Kill him. In a flash, Ragna explodes into motion. He unleashes a devastating flurry of attacks, shouting the names of his techniques, a karate punch, a thunder requiem, and an eternal blizzard as he strikes down all three assailants in a single, overwhelming assault. He lets out a weary sigh as the train continues its journey, chugging along the tracks that cut through a vast, rocky canyon. Inside the now secured car, he sits atop the pile of his defeated assailants, a makeshift throne of unconscious bodies. He impatiently wonders when they will finally arrive in the brave territory. He dismisses the attackers as mere small fry, recalling Patricia's words about submission. He concludes that such things are irrelevant. All that matters is being near the two of them. His thoughts then shift to a more practical matter as he observes the crowded general car, deciding he should find a seat. He stops, his search for a seat forgotten. His eyes lock onto a group sitting nearby: Clive, another young man, and Alicia. Clive turns his head as if sensing a presence. The sight that greets Ragna is jarring. Alicia is fast asleep, her head resting comfortably on the other young man's shoulder. As the boy looks down in surprise, Ragna stares, utterly dumbfounded by the scene. On a train platform, Clive confronts Ragna, identifying himself as Alicia's former fiancé and demanding to know why Ragna is there. Before Ragna can answer, Alicia steps between them, formally introducing the dark-haired young man as Ragna Volfrave. She then turns to Ragna, her cheeks faintly flushed. She acknowledges that he must have many questions, but for the moment, she simply asks him to take a seat. Inside the train carriage, Clive observes the empty seats with a thoughtful expression. He remarks that he hadn't expected to find no other passengers at this hour, concluding that this arrangement must be Alicia's doing. He continues, expressing his surprise at finding himself riding in a general carriage. With a smirk, he comments that the scale of his little prank has certainly grown. He then leans close to Ragna, intending to whisper a secret, but an invisible barrier deflects the sound waves from Ragna's ear. Pulling back, Clive changes his approach. He reveals that he has an appointment to meet Patricia at the terminal station and has requested her as his escort. He then scoffs at Ragna and Alicia, dismissing them as mere commoners, a remark that causes Ragna's expression to harden. His gaze shifts to where Mariana sleeps peacefully on Alicia's lap. Ragna's thoughts turn to Patricia, recalling her simultaneous involvement with Edward. As he mulls this over, Mariana begins to mutter in her sleep, a troubled look on her face. Alicia gently comforts the sleeping girl, telling Ragna that it's all right and she should continue to rest. Ragna watches them, thinking to himself that he should be the one in that position. Still half asleep, Mariana murmurs that the prince is here and that she feels faint. At that moment, the compartment door slides open. Clive leans in, casually asking if Mariana has woken up. Startled, Mariana's eyes fly open as she realizes with a gasp that his presence is not a dream. Alicia instinctively shields the frightened girl from his view. Clive looks on, annoyed, reminding her that he had instructed her to avoid physical contact so as not to trigger the girl's trauma. She calmly replies that this is a general carriage, not a place where royalty should be making visits. Hearing this, Clive sighs and presses a hand to his forehead, muttering in exasperation that she's saying that sort of thing yet again. He reflects on a past incident, one where Alicia stood in armor, looking shaken. He had believed her public awareness had shifted after that event, but now a new, unsettling possibility enters his mind. This doubt solidifies into a condescending accusation. Looking down at Alicia as she comforts Mariana, he asks if her parents instructed her to be seen with a commoner simply to repair her own image. Before Alicia can respond, Ragna steps forward, his voice sharp as he calls out to get Clive's attention. He then turns to Alicia, gesturing for her to remain calm. Clive observes the interaction with a flash of irritation. Ragna confronts Clive directly, stating that while he might lack the authority to intervene in injustices within the academy's walls, they are not on school grounds. Here, he asserts, he has every right to speak up. Clive dismisses the point, changing the subject to Alicia's former hangers-on. He asks if they are still clinging to Patricia, a name that makes Alicia question what he is talking about. He continues, alluding to a vicious rumor she supposedly left behind. Though he admits he still lacks proof, his insinuation hangs heavy in the air. Alicia turns away, lost in thought. She wonders why Clive would be manipulating events from behind the scenes just to harass Mariana. As she contemplates this, Ragna's hand clenches into a fist. The word royalty echoes in his mind, tied to the dark impulse to kill. Suddenly, Clive lunges forward, violently pulling Mariana away from Alicia. He sneers that even after their broken engagement, her commoner personality hasn't changed. The aggressive act leaves everyone stunned. He maintained his grip on the young woman, but she met his aggression not with fear, but with defiance. Her eyes, wide behind her glasses, flashed with indignation as she retorted, accusing him of speaking on matters he knew nothing about. She challenged how he could say such things with such ignorance, declaring that he didn't understand anything at all. Her words hung in the air, but his grip only tightened. With a dismissive, almost gentle tone, Clive claimed he was only acting for her sake. Mariana immediately rejected his justification, shouting back that she had never asked for such a thing. Mariana's thoughts raced. She recalled what the teacher had said about the incident, realizing that if she were in Alicia's position, she would have to return to the academy at once. The memory of those who were taken, and those who had everything stolen from them, weighed heavily on her mind. Her distress grew as she considered Alicia's resilience. Despite enduring such harsh treatment, Alicia never let it show on her face. Instead, she would always meet Mariana's gaze with a gentle smile. The memory shifted to a different scene, where Clive stood before the small girl, questioning her. He asked if she could truly do such a thing, simply because it was her parents' command. Back in the present, Alicia gently held Mariana, telling her it was all right. She apologized for making her say so much, her voice soft with concern as Mariana's face was etched with sorrow. She continued, explaining that even a prince would lash out if someone harmed their friends. Mariana insisted that Alicia was strong and that she respected her deeply. Alicia, taken aback, denied it, claiming she wasn't strong at all as a memory of Ragna, and jealousy flashed in her mind. Her denial trailed off as she touched the side of her face. A sudden realization struck her. A burn scar, she murmured, her eyes wide with surprise as the image of a grand academy building surfaced in her memory. The memory took hold. She and Mariana sat on a bench in different uniforms, sharing a meal. Mariana offered to help, asking if she should use her healing magic on the injury. She had refused the offer back then. With a gentle but firm expression, she explained that the scar was proof that she had fought. She intended to accept it and use it as motivation to move forward. Returning to the present embrace, Mariana's eyes filled with tears. She declared that she would accept Alicia's past wound with her, and only then would she heal it. Overcome with emotion, Alicia whispered her thanks. From a distance, Clive watched their embrace, his expression unreadable as he uttered a single word, "Your Highness." He apologizes for the intrusion, but Alicia, her back still turned, states that if her companion was disrespectful, she will take full responsibility. He quickly tries to correct her, stammering that it wasn't like that at all. Alicia turns slightly to face him, her gaze steady, while Ragna observes the tense exchange with a hint of anxiety. Ragna reflects internally that trying to force an issue will only complicate matters. His thoughts drift back to a time when Alicia lay gravely injured, her wounds a direct consequence of Edward's passing. He recalls them standing together outside a home, a silent testament to the events that transpired. And yet, despite it all, she has accepted everything. She now lives life to the fullest, as his fiancée. Inside a train car, the group settles in. Ragna addresses Clive, telling him to be thankful he's even allowed on the same carriage. Alicia gently chides Ragna for his disrespect, but he remains firm, refusing to let the matter go. A young man with dark, spiky hair intervenes, clapping Clive on the shoulder and suggesting they move to another car. As they turn to leave, Ragna confirms with the newcomer that Alicia is indeed his fiancée. The young man affirms this, and Alicia, overhearing the exchange, reflects on how she has changed since joining the Brave faction. Before departing, Clive turns back to Ragna and makes a solemn vow. From this point forward, he will be the one to protect Alicia. Ragna simply smiles, remarking that she is a good and strong woman, a fact Clive seems to accept with quiet determination. As the spiky-haired young man walks away down the corridor, he lets out a sigh. He muses to himself that if it's Ragna, he can probably succeed. His departure is halted by Mariana, who explains that things have been difficult. She notes that Clive is in a position where he cannot easily apologize, so she offers an apology on his behalf, as Alicia looks on. He waves her apology away with a casual gesture, assuring her that he's used to such things. As the train continues its journey through the mountains, he remarks with a wry smile that things are as chaotic as they've always been. Inside the train car, Mariana confronts Ragna and Alicia, her cheeks puffed out in indignation. She questions why they aren't apologizing, declaring that the prince is to be pitied for having Alicia as his betrothed. She clenches her fists, insisting that it's still not right, but Ragna calmly interjects. He explains that forcing a royal to bow their head could be considered a punishable offense, a possibility that leaves Mariana aghast. As this tense discussion unfolds, a mysterious figure in a long, light-colored cloak and wide-brimmed hat walks silently down the aisle, their thoughts unvoiced. Even if I don't want to apologize. Back in their seats, Alicia gently comforts the now-crying Mariana, stroking her hair and reassuring her of her kindness. The tension soon subsides, and Mariana begins to happily munch on a snack. Alicia then calls out to Ragna. Without turning to face her fully, he states with quiet determination that he will be the one to protect her. His words seem to weigh on Alicia as she looks down. She looks up at him, a deep blush spreading across her face, and thanks him. Her sincere gratitude seems to fluster Ragna in turn. In the background, Mariana gives a triumphant thumbs up, trying to move past the moment. Ragna suggests they forget about it and simply enjoy their lunch. Upon a verdant hill overlooking a sprawling territory, Alicia, Ragna, and Mariana pause their journey. Mariana takes a deep breath, remarking on how wonderfully fresh the air is in the Brave territory. She elaborates, explaining that the air in the capital is always stagnant, a consequence of the protective barrier that envelopes it. Here, however, it is clear and crisp. Alicia agrees wholeheartedly, enjoying the pleasant wind that blows through her hair, a sensation she finds delightful without the barrier. Ragna then points toward a nearby estate, informing her that they are about to arrive. Just as he speaks, a large group of household staff thunders down the hill from the estate, rushing towards them with shouts of welcome. With a calm smile, Ragna opens his arms to receive their boisterous greeting. The staff's attention quickly shifts to Alicia, calling her name and expressing how long they have waited for her return. Visibly moved by their devotion, Alicia's expression softens as she quietly announces to them all, "I'm home." Amidst the welcome, an elderly butler wearing a monocle approaches Ragna, formally greeting him as young master. Ragna acknowledges the man, replying, "I'm back, Seabass." Nearby, Alicia and Mariana observe the formal exchange with slight surprise. His greeting concluded, Seabass turns to the girls, mentioning that he has already heard about Ragna's two friends. The word friends catches Mariana completely off guard, causing her to freeze up as she stammers a denial. Before she can object further, Alicia warmly wraps an arm around Mariana's shoulders. She looks at the staff and declares with a confident smile that Mariana is her best friend. Her friend's sudden, firm declaration leaves Mariana blushing and momentarily speechless. After a brief pause, she collects herself and introduces herself to everyone as Mariana, Alicia's best friend, asking them to please take care of her. The staff responds with warmth, with one man apologizing for any rudeness and a maid offering to show Mariana to her room. As they depart, Seabass comments to Ragna how pleased he is to see him enjoying his school life, to which Ragna gives a simple affirmation. While he and Seabass stood in the background, Alicia turned to Mariana with a soft blush, confessing that it was thanks to her that she had started to smile so much more. As they walked, Seabass quietly asked Ragna if his sister had managed to make any female friends. Ragna, looking away with a slight frown, curtly told the butler not to ask. He continued, musing that his ideal of male friendship was a passionate bond forged through fists. He then wondered aloud if friendships between girls were different, admitting he had no such friend himself. Approaching the grand estate, Seabass poured a cup of coffee, expressing his sincere hope that the young lady could make friends. He advised Ragna to have faith and not to wait impatiently. Inside, several members of the staff were on a break. A maid with light hair exclaimed that she'd never had such rich, flavorful coffee before. Another with dark hair agreed it was completely different from their usual drink. The large man praised the quality of the beans from the capital as Ragna watched from a doorway. He remarked to Seabass that the staff's reaction was quite different from his own. Seabass explained that the coffee Ragna was accustomed to was a special blend. He then loudly questioned the staff, asking why they were using the territory's coffee to give their sleepy brains a shock. The servants flinched, but Ragna smiled, realizing it was just a joke. Meanwhile, Mariana invited Alicia to visit the fields with her later. She mentioned hearing that Alicia had pioneered something there and was eager to see it for herself. As one of the maids offered to guide them, the other servants, including the large man and the bald man, enthusiastically volunteered to join. They all departed, leaving a surprised Seabass and a quiet Ragna behind. Out in a sun-drenched field, Alicia turned to Mariana with a proud expression. She gestured to the cultivated land, explaining that everyone had worked together to raise it. She held out a handful of rich, dark soil, stating their next goal was to improve it. Looking hopefully at her friend, she asked if Mariana could use her earth attribute magic to help. The nearby servants watched with admiration. She listened intently as Mariana, filled with excitement, explained that if they could also utilize the grassland she had seen, the area had the potential to become a major production hub. Alicia considered this, her mind racing with the possibilities. Growing an abundance of delicious vegetables could become a new industry for the Volfrave domain. Unseen by the two girls, Ragna and Clive passed by in a nearby hallway, their cheerful chatter echoing around them. Alicia stands with Mariana, holding a piece of fruit. Though she cannot explain why, she has a distinct premonition that a new story is about to begin right here. Elsewhere, Ragna sips from a cup as his butler, Seabass, approaches him with a serious expression. The butler begins to speak, stating that something has been worrying him about the young master. Before Seabass can elaborate, Clive, who is also present, bluntly interjects with a question for Ragna, asking if there's been any progress with Lady Alicia. The sudden question causes Clive himself to spit out his drink in surprise at his own audacity. Ragna chokes violently on his own beverage. Seabass, startled, asks Clive why he would ask such a thing so suddenly, adding that as someone who has served Ragna for many years, he is concerned. His mind flashes back to his time with Alicia, both before and after their time at the academy. He laments that she seems unchanged, always maintaining a precise distance of about 45 centimeters between them. He then recalls Alicia complaining about the cowardice so unbecoming of the Brave family, his own lineage. Ragna internally agrees, acknowledging that his family has always been inept at such matters. However, his thoughts shift to a more positive memory. It's not as if there's been no progress at all. He vividly remembers a moment from their date when they walked together, hand in hand. Snapping back to the present, Ragna stands with renewed confidence. He declares that they even held hands on their date, proclaiming it a great advance. Just then, a maid enters the room, announcing that she has brought additional documents. The maid glances silently over Clive. She places the documents on a nearby table as Clive and Seabass stare with jaws dropped, utterly stunned by Ragna's declaration. Turning away, the maid covers her mouth with a gloved hand, hiding a subtle, knowing smile. The maid chuckles to herself, observing the manner. With the house suffering from a severe staff shortage, she thinks she will have to dismiss that girl. Inside, Seabass questions what she could have been referring to. He stands before Ragna and Clive, noting that everyone seems to be saying the same thing lately, and they're not in a position for such matters. Ragna explains that during a practice session at the academy, he fought someone who was possessed by a demon, a demonic being wreathed in flames, of a power level not seen even in common wars. He reveals that this possessed individual turned out to be the son of the Ignite family, a memory that brings to mind Jealousy's sharp-eyed presence during the incident. Seabass processes this, remarking that for their son to harbor a demon, the Ignite family must have fallen very low. Ragna retorts that poor upbringing is hardly a rare thing in their own house. I see, Seabass murmurs, though he seems troubled. He recalls, however, that the Brave family's education is one of love, a thought accompanied by a memory of a young Ragna being violently thrown, yet still offering his thanks. As Seabass quietly repeats the fact, possessed by a demon, Ragna looks over, questioning his butler's pensive state. The butler turns to look out the window, stating gravely that a power obtained by depending on another is a power that can only lead to destruction. Ragna's expression hardens. He clenches his fist, agreeing with the sentiment and promising to keep it firmly in mind. He stands, fist still clenched. Then there's only one thing to do. He reflects that while encountering monsters is an everyday occurrence, if they're dealing with demons, they must take appropriate measures. He states his intention clearly, to improve the defensive combat capabilities of the three of them. Seabass, the butler, seems taken aback, remarking that taking a young lady on vacation for training is an unusual approach. Ragna, clenching his fist, acknowledges that since Alicia is the target, they have no other choice. His gaze drifts to shelves laden with training equipment as he internally reflects that they have no time for distractions like romance while they are training. Hearing this, Seabass's expression becomes thoughtful. He understands the situation and announces that he has a good idea to resolve both issues, the need for training and the lack of romantic progress, at the same time. Moments later, the group stands inside a vast, dusty warehouse. As Ragna and Seabass confer, Alicia and Mariana look around in confusion. Mariana asks where they are, while Alicia murmurs that she never knew such a place existed. Ragna turns to the butler, demanding to know what he meant by a special event limited to the Brave territory. He urges Seabass to try and recall the details. In response, Seabass poses a question of his own, asking Ragna what was the first thing that shortened the distance between him and Lady Alicia, wryly suggesting their first date in the mountains. The butler closes his eyes, elaborating on his point. He explains that the key is to share an experience that is out of the ordinary. He then points forward decisively, his voice dropping as he prepares to reveal the nature of his plan. In other words, he begins. From a landing above, Seabass declares his plan a demonic invocation. He explains that the resulting emergency will increase their level of intimacy. Below, Alicia flushes in embarrassment while Mariana cries out that this won't end well. Unfazed, Ragna simply turns to the girls and asks, "Shall we?" On a certain day off, a loud crash echoes through the building, startling Ragna. He turns to see Alicia silhouetted in a doorway. She's just thrown open, her posture rigid. His immediate thought is that they're under an enemy attack. He finds her moments later, now wearing a checkered headscarf. Ragna asks what is happening, but she only turns to him, her face shadowed, and addresses him by name. Her serious tone catches him off guard. He asks again what's wrong, thinking it might be about the shed. Alicia, however, makes a declaration. They're going to cut the grass. Before he can fully process this, she intensifies her statement, telling him to hurry and prepare, because this is a war. A bewildered Ragna can only agree. Her true objective is then revealed. With a fiery determination, Alicia announces they are going to exterminate the insects from her garden, vowing not to leave a single one alive. The scene shifts, as Ragna recalls that this all began half a month prior. Alicia had thrown herself into gardening. She studied diligently, carefully selected her 10-day radish seeds, and went to sleep dreaming of her future plants. From a distance, Ragna had watched her tending to her garden. He thought to himself how much fun she was having and how lovely she looked while doing it. However, the start of summer brought a sudden heat wave that defeated her radishes. They soon became prey to pests and disease, leaving Alicia to stare in horror at her failed harvest. Returning to the present, she shoves the withered results at Ragna, demanding to know if his harvest failed as well. As she shouts for him to respond, a terrified Ragna confirms that it did. She leads Ragna by the collar with a gardening tool, reflecting internally that she has become a tyrant. Ragna, following along, questions her actions but admits to himself that a part of him doesn't hate it. The commotion attracts Mariana, who enthusiastically volunteers for the endeavor. With a determined wink, she declares she will do her best, clearly motivated by the promised reward, coffee. Mariana announces that she will be joining as well, escalating the situation to an all-out battle, which flusters Alicia. Ragna, however, remains resolute. He thinks to himself that even without a reward, he will eliminate the enemy if Alicia commands it, dismissing the talk of coffee as nonsense. He then offers his direct assistance, boasting that he is good at exterminating pests, in more ways than one, and can clear weeds in an instant. A blushing Alicia thanks him but firmly declines, stating her decision to care for her own garden herself, which catches him by surprise. Her expression hardens with resolve as she gives a slight wink. This, she decides, is how a member of the Brave family ought to conduct themselves. His gaze intensifies as he watches her, silently affirming her decision. A thought crosses his mind. She has all the qualities of a proper wife. The notion lingers as the view shifts to a nearby house. Ragna leads the way down a set of stone stairs, his footsteps echoing in the narrow passage. Alicia, following with Mariana, asks if this is about demon summoning. Ragna confirms it's training to defeat a demon, but Alicia's face clouds with worry, protesting that it's too dangerous to involve Mariana. He turns back to them, explaining that as long as Alicia is being targeted, Mariana's defensive capabilities must also be improved. Alicia's blush of concern deepens at his logic. His serious tone vanishes in an instant, replaced by a wide, confident grin. He flexes an arm, declaring that he'll defeat any threats himself, so the two of them should just relax and enjoy the summoning experience to make a fun summer memory. Still uncertain, Alicia asks Mariana if this is what Ragna is really like. As Mariana confirms it, the butler, Seabass, explains that the Volfray family has always survived by forcing its children into extreme situations to train them for battle. It has always been this way, and always will be, a fact reflected in the image of a young Ragna sitting calmly between two menacing wolf-like beasts. Ragna's voice echoes this sentiment, stating firmly that is precisely why the brave are strong. His words strike a chord with Alicia, who looks at him with a startled, contemplative expression. A short while later, Seabass leads them into a vast, stone-walled chamber. Both Alicia and Mariana look around in awe at the immense space. The butler informs them that this is a shelter, a refuge to be used when they are attacked. He continues his explanation, revealing that the walls are magically reinforced. They utilize golems from the nearby mountain range in their construction, giving them exceptional durability. Alicia stares at the wall, realizing its true nature, while Mariana gasps in disbelief at the mention of golems. Suddenly, Mariana flinches, clutching a small, dark object that resembles a brush. Behind her, Alicia looks on with concern, asking what she intends to do. Seabass observes the scene with a slight smile, turning to a slightly winded Ragna. This is no joke, the butler remarks, noting that Mariana actually possesses a high aptitude for the brave territory. Two small, whimsical summoned creatures float nearby. The butler, acknowledging their understanding, snaps his fingers with a sharp crack as a dark, swirling distortion manifests in the air above the training floor. From the distortion, a hulking, monstrous creature with the head of a boar and a massively muscular humanoid body crashes down before them. Alicia and Mariana recoil in shock. Seabass calmly introduces the beast as an orc lord, noting its freshness as it was just captured that morning. Mariana, unfazed, points and asks if it's true that the creature's testicles are traded at a high price. A mortified Alicia shouts at her not to touch them, as the two small familiars cling to her in fear. In the background, Ragna announces that it is time to begin. Seabass then turns to Ragna, questioning if he can proceed without an incantation. Ragna confirms that he can, stating that all he needs to do is channel his magic into his wish. He then stands alone, closing his eyes to concentrate on his singular desire. As he focuses, a torrent of power erupts around him. Elsewhere, another young man gasps in shock, realizing with horror that his own magical energy is being forcefully siphoned away. He unleashes the stolen power in a blinding, concussive wave that floods the chamber. The energy dissipates, leaving Alicia and Mariana staring in stunned silence. From a plume of residual smoke, a sinister figure with a wide, sharp-toothed grin begins to materialize, announcing that the wish has been conveyed. The being fully forms, revealing himself as the demon Amamant, a self-proclaimed supernova. He addresses Ragna with amused contempt, mocking the foolish little brat who would dare wish for a one-on-one battle against him. Ragna watches him, his expression unreadable. The young man whose magic was stolen stares blankly, utterly drained and bewildered. With the demon summoned and the challenge issued, a declaration is made. Farewell. The demon summoning, Ragna arc, is complete. The butler, Seabass, turns to Alicia, remarking on how someone has just fled. He explains that this happens sometimes. The Volfray family has a history of slaying demons, and, as such, they are feared. Nearby, Ragna silently wonders what the person could have seen to provoke such a reaction, while Mariana simply adjusts her glasses. He then presents a small, ornate box to the two of them, asking them to take it. Beside Alicia, Mariana beams with excitement, declaring that it is now their turn. The object is revealed to be a white agate, a brilliant stone said to protect the bearer's spirit from the whispers of demons. Seabass elaborates that it is an heirloom, passed down through the Volfray generations to protect the lady of the house. He gravely warns that contact with demons is extremely dangerous, urging them to keep the stone on their person at all times. Sensing Alicia's growing anxiety, Mariana places a reassuring hand on her arm. She tells Alicia not to worry, promising to protect her. The intense situation seems to be having an effect on Alicia, akin to a suspension bridge effect. With a book in hand, Mariana takes a deep breath. Well then, I'm going, she says, steeling herself as she prepares to proceed alone. She steps onto a large, glowing ritual circle inscribed on the floor. Holding the agate aloft, she begins an incantation, calling to the starved and thirsty ghosts of another world and offering them a piece of this one. In response, a massive, monstrous hand begins to materialize from the circle's center. A close view reveals Mariana's expression. A calm, knowing smile plays on her lips as the summoning commences. Watching from aside, Seabass explains to a bewildered Alicia that what she is witnessing is likely due to Mariana's own power. He suggests that Mariana's immense holy magic is what is putting everyone on high alert. His words trigger a memory. Alicia recalls Mariana being confirmed as a saint during an inspection. Another flash shows Mariana performing some kind of touch-based test on a boy. The pieces click into place, and a dreadful realization dawns on Alicia. If Mariana was a saint, then she must be the last one to be tested. She grips her chest tightly, a pained expression crossing her face as Ragna calls out her name in concern. As Seabass begins to speak, she gazes down at the white agate in her hand. She realizes that, as a member of the Volfrey family, it would be better if she did not rely on such an item. He respectfully informs her that the choice is entirely hers. Whether she uses the stone or returns it, her decision will be honored. In response, she extends her hand, offering to return the stone. A smile spreads across Seabass's face as he praises her excellent judgment. However, Alicia's expression hardens with resolve, and she declares that she will keep it after all. She turns to Ragna, admitting that she understands her current power is not enough. She vows, however, to strive to become strong enough to stand by his side as a true Volfrave. Her sudden declaration leaves Ragna momentarily speechless. Alicia asks him to wait, then turns with renewed purpose and announces that it is time to proceed. As she walks ahead, Seabass quietly warns that rushing forward and misjudging one's own capabilities can lead to ruin. He continues, his voice carrying a note of hope, adding that a person who can recognize their own limits and work to overcome them is certain to attain genuine power. At that moment, a glowing circle materializes on the floor. An incantation fills the air. "O starved and thirsty ghost of the other world, I now offer you a piece of this world that you seek." From the light, a monstrous, clawed hand erupts as Alicia stares, utterly bewildered. She recoils as the monstrous hand, wreathed in dark energy, seizes her left arm. A jolt of pain shoots through her as she stares in disbelief, her mind racing. She wonders if this burning sensation is the price of the ritual or something else entirely. Alicia cries out as her hand is suddenly engulfed in magical flames. Nearby, Seabass and Jealousy react with alarm. From a distance, Ragna shouts Alicia's name, warning her not to approach. He lunges forward, pulling Alicia back while placing his own hand over hers, causing the flames to transfer entirely to him. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Ragna wonders what this fire is and why it seems to be coming from his own right hand, as Alicia stares in wide-eyed shock. A magical intervention occure. Elsewhere, the spiky-haired man who is targeting Alicia is thrown back by a brilliant flash of light. Jealousy watches him fall, remarking with disdain, "Oh, it's you again." The man collapses to the ground, utterly spent. From the floor, the man recognizes the voice instantly. Jealousy, he thinks, his mind filled with frustration. He laments that Alicia was just about to become his. He stares up at a small, pulsing orb of light that hovers in the air before him, a remnant of the magical clash. Back in the main hall, Ragna lets out a guttural scream as the fire rages around his arm. Watching him burn, Alicia shrieks in absolute terror. Seabass watches the scene unfold with a stoic expression. As Ragna finally collapses to the floor with a heavy thud, Mariana rushes forward, crying out his name in panic. The butler kneels beside the smoking form of his young master. He notes that Ragna was burned from inside the barrier, then asks if he's all right, before rhetorically questioning if he even looks all right. Struggling to push himself up, the battered Ragna looks over and sees Alicia lying unconscious on the floor. He weakly murmurs her name. He trembles, forcing himself onto his hands and knees. As he reaches a hand toward her, a single, devastating thought consumes him. Did I fail to protect her? He watched as the butler, Seabass, gently held the unconscious Alicia. The old man's face was etched with worry as he looked down at the young lady in his arms, murmuring her name. Seabass turned to him, confirming that she was safe. The butler then questioned the ominous air that had suddenly emanated from Ragna, before explaining that thanks to his quick intervention, Lady Alicia had only suffered minor injuries and would awaken soon. Despite the reassurance, he insisted that Alicia's treatment take priority, waving off Jealousy's suggestion that he tend to his own wounds. His focus remained solely on her. Elsewhere, within the estate, preparations were made for her care, a cloth being wrung out in a basin of water, a detail noted from the attacker's strange ritual involving a kiss to the hand. Alicia was soon resting comfortably in bed, attended by a tearful maid. Seabass stood watch, explaining his theory. The devil's mark was likely inscribed on her then, with the summoning of a demon being the trigger for the curse. In another room, a heavily bandaged Ragna grimaced, finding it difficult to eat while overhearing the commotion. Later, Seabass approached Ragna directly. The butler revealed his belief that the ambush on the train was merely a diversion, a tactic to make them lower their guard. With that grim assessment delivered, Seabass stated that they needed to talk before opening a door leading out into the bright morning. But their conversation was interrupted. Ragna turned to find Alicia, now awake and standing by his bedside, greeting him with a gentle good morning. She asked if he was all right, and he affirmed that he was. She smiled, remarking that everyone was making too much of a fuss, unaware of the small, invisible spirits celebrating her recovery. Now that she was awake, she insisted he take a break. She told him that since he was officially relieved of his duties for the time being, he should take the opportunity to relax. He sipped his drink, listening to her. She then suggested they go outside for a while, gesturing towards the peaceful landscape visible from the window. Moments later, Alicia was pushing Ragna, now in a wheelchair and wrapped in robes, along a sun-dappled path. She worried that the old wheelchair might be too heavy, but he assured her it was fine. Changing the subject with a playful tone, she adopted the role of a chauffeur, asking where her customer would like to go. A small smile touched his lips as he requested a tour of the area. He found himself pondering what to do in this strange, peaceful situation. His thoughts were a stark contrast to the unseen, fervent cheering from Seabass and the maids, who urged him to seize the moment, close the distance, and cherish the romantic mood they had so carefully orchestrated. He walked beside Alicia through a grassy, sunlit area. After a moment of silence, she broke it, her voice quiet as she spoke his name, her expression somber. His jaw tightened, his gaze fixed forward as he braced himself for what she was about to say. She asked if it was true that he was quitting his training in the brave territory, her voice filled with concern. She then questioned if it was because her own abilities were insufficient. Internally, Ragna cursed Seabass for having told her. He turned to face her, his expression serious, as he stated firmly, "That's not it." Despite his denial, Alicia's strength seemed to abandon her, and she collapsed onto the path, her head bowed in despair. Ragna began to speak, his words trailing off. "I'm just—" His explanation was lost as a profound silence settled over the landscape, with only the rustling of leaves and the wind breaking the stillness.